What whiskies have you been ignoring recently? What have you decided that's not really worth your attention? What whiskies are you walking past? Well, for me, it's confession time again. I'm going to share another handful of whiskies with you that I'm a wee bit guilty of ignoring. Maybe because I consider them a wee bit unsexy, maybe because for some reason there's just so much choice and these ones haven't grabbed my attention yet. Time to rectify some of that tonight. See you in a minute. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the vPub. Another Thursday night. It's just me tonight. It's a solo session. I hope that's okay with everybody. Yes, it's been a busy few weeks at the vPub. So I'm looking forward to having a bit more of a relaxed vibe and a laid-back theme tonight so that I can kind of meander through some more distilleries, some more producers, some more expressions that I'm a wee bit guilty of. I'm speaking about myself personally always with these things. When I talk about ignored whiskies, I'm not talking about ignored by everyone. I'm speaking about me. It's almost like a wee personal confession. And you guys are very, very good at bringing whiskies to my attention. And there's a couple here tonight that I have been ignoring. And when you do bring it to my attention, and when I find something that's a bit of a gem, because that's inevitably about what you want to share, I think it's fantastic and another example of that bi-directional thing that we have got going on in this amazing platform and this really amazing community. Anyway, welcome everybody. It's fantastic to hang out with you all on another very busy Thursday night. There's a couple of wee things to talk about tonight, a couple of things to cover, but I think we'll just kind of weave it into the evening. I think what I'd like to do is bring you up to speed with what's happening maybe on the Oswis side of things a bit later, let you know that I am finally committed and it looks like, if COVID is good to me, let's say, that I might actually be able to travel over to Texas as well in a week or so's time. So there are some things to share with you. But before I get into all of that and before I start talking about the theme tonight, I'm going to jump into the lounge with you guys and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated Barflies. How are you all? How are you all doing? I hope you have something nice in the glass. Please share what you're sipping tonight and tell me if it's something that is maybe often ignored. Whiskey Novice Jim is here from Northern Ireland. Good to see you, saying good evening, my friend. Good evening. Straight back to you, Jim. Always brilliant to see your face and hear, my friend. Hellswood is here. Evening, Roy. Now, you're feeling a wee bit under the weather, Helen. A little bird tells me. I thought that maybe you wouldn't be here tonight, but maybe you're sitting over the top of a hot toddy or something like that. I hope you've got something and I hope you're feeling a wee bit okay. John Della Cuisine is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you in as well. John Della Cuisine, Greg's Whiskey Guide is here as well from France. Greg, always tremendous to see you in. Always tremendous to see you as well, John. Gregor Dykeman is here. Graham Fraser, fantastic. Josh Pence, good to see you, Josh. I hope you're doing very, very well. Jimmy Jazz is here. Fantastic, Jimmy. I just caught a comment on Patreon from you as well. It looks like you have a very imminent trip planned to Scotland. That would be amazing. Get me up to speed on what's happening there, please, Jimmy. Evan Calitz is in as well. Evan, so good to welcome you in again, my friend. Good to see you here. Callum Muir is here. Fantastic. Jason Bradford, your name will come up a wee bit later tonight, Jason. You're partly responsible for some of the content this evening. Tom Scaramuzza is in as well. Good to see you, Tom. Molasses Mike is in. Superb. Good to see you. Gavs Drams, Des, Curtis Campbell, Billy Saunders, Bruno Martins in Portugal, and Frank Peathead in the Netherlands. Superb. That looks like a new name, and it looks like Sevar Björgvinsson. There you go. Sevar. Sorry, my friend. Evening, Roy. Cheers from Iceland. Wow. Björgvinsson, fantastic. So good to welcome you in from Iceland. Martin Breda is here. So good to see you, Martin. Dave Cummins is here as well from the States. Superb. Falsgraf, very good evening, Roy. Straight back at you, my friend. Good to have you here. Max Kreitner is in as well. Good evening, Roy. He's saying, Max, I hope you and Christina are both doing very, very well. Yuri is saying simply about whiskey. So that's the Russian characters that we see there. Good to have you in, Yuri. He's saying good evening, Roy, and hello, everybody. Always wonderful to welcome you, my friend. Jerry Miller is saying hello to all my wonderful barflies around the world. Hello, Roy. Good to see you, Jerry. And Jimmy Jazz is saying, I have not been ignoring you, just away for the past 2 weeks. Jimmy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. That's the great thing about the vPub, and it's the great thing about YouTube, is that you take it when your mood, your time, and your inclination allows. Richard Hall is saying, evening, Roy, both you and the backdrop looking good. Thank you very, very much. There have been some whiskies appearing on the backdrop, you might have noticed, over the course of the last few weeks. The one I'm sipping right now has been sat on the backdrop for a while as I started to collect the whiskies with a view to bringing this theme tonight, which is part 3 of this. I did one in January, quickly followed that up in April. I can probably tell you the whiskies that I covered back then. If you wanted to go back and have a wee look, I think that would be a good place to start, actually. I did rhyme off a whole list of ignored distilleries that I intended to cover. And instead of kind of reducing that list by exploring them, I actually seem to have added to the list. Regardless, let's bring you up to speed to where we are today. Back in January, I think, it was the Glenglassaugh Evolution, Bladnoch 11-year-old, Wolfburn Morven, Glasgow peated, the 1770 peated and the original, that I explored in that particular vPub. And then in April, I followed it up with exploring a Speyburn 15-year-old. That was my attention was brought to that from the community, and wonderful it was too. Then a bit of a letdown on the Balmainach, the Deerstalker 12-year-old. It just suffered from presentation, unfortunately. I also went over to the Speyside Distillery and tried their Spey Trutina cask strength. Then I went for an 18-year-old Speyburn as well, which has proved to be a favourite and a staple here. Both Speyburns are fantastic. And then I went on to explore Edredale, our 12-year-old Caledonia, which is very, very powerful whiskey, very strongly flavoured, very densely flavoured whiskey, very old school style as well, and fantastic it was too. And I finished off that night with a peated one, the Ailsa Bay Sweet Smoke Release 1.2. I remember being okay with it on the night, but I don't seem to be reaching for a lot of peated whiskies recently. You know how these things can be very mood driven. So we will go through and we'll cover another 5 distilleries tonight. And I'm going to use these 5 distilleries to kind of explain perhaps why I think I've been ignoring them a wee bit, but also use each of the distilleries to kind of talk about bigger topics as well that I think are interwoven. It looks like Jim, Whiskey Novice, has bought me a wee whiskey, you star. He's bought me a dram. Let's see what Jim is saying. He's saying, can't hang around tonight, Roy, but just wanted to say cheers. I hit 1,000 subscribers tonight. Yes, about time too. Jim, Whiskey Novice, Jim Ingram in Northern Ireland. Jim, if you want to drop your channel link into the chat before you disappear, please do that. That would have been amazing. Thank you very much for buying me a dram. I feel like I should be buying you a dram, a friend. It looks like that's going to be possible now that you've hit 1,000 subs. And YouTube will hopefully unlock some of its goodie box for you. Thank you. And everyone else who's part of this incredible community. Congratulations to Jim in Northern Ireland, Whiskey Novice, and reaching that really, really tough challenge these days of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Cheers to you, my friend. Well done. Superb. Whatever you're doing tonight, Jim, I hope it can involve. Oh, this is a nice whiskey. This is a nice whiskey to start with. Hope it involves a nice whiskey for you to celebrate with as well, my friend. Harry Falkenberg, that looks like a new name, Roy. If you're able to make it to Texas, I will have a glass of Bruichladdich Blackheart 1990 waiting for you. Harry, you'll need to seek me out. There is so much whiskey floating around at that thing. But that is indeed a pretty special wee dram as well. I think that's the 4.1 edition, isn't it? The 23-year-old. Very, very rich whiskey, very rich indeed. And another wee dram's come in from my friend Daniel Williams in the Netherlands, having a dram of Balcones Rye tonight. Sure, this show will cost me money again. Slantia. Do you know what? That's a good point, Daniel, because the more that you enthuse about whiskies, and especially when you find something that you really love, there's an inevitability that some people are maybe going to be inspired to go out and maybe spend some money on it, or at least if they're faced with a choice on the shelf, they might decide to go for the one that they've heard me talking about. That's not really the intention, but the intention very much is one of, if you are going to be buying whiskey anyway, and I'm not costing you any more money, maybe I can help you place your money on safer bets. I think I've achieved that on one or two of the lineup tonight. So if you're going to buy something from either of these distilleries, I'm going to guide you where your money is much, much better spent. So I hope that I've twisted that around enough to make it sound like I'm actually saving you money, Daniel, rather than costing you money. That's the intention. I don't know if we always achieve it. And a friend from Iceland, you need to help me pronounce your name a wee bit better. Let's go for Sevar. It looks like it would be, has joined the Aqvavitae Barflies. Thank you very much for that. Aqvavitae Barflies is almost like a little bit of a support for the channel. And what it does is, because the Barflies join, they get access to the custom emojis and things, things to help them colour the chat a wee bit. And that means that you don't have to sit through ads to watch the vPub, either live tonight or on the replay. You never see an ad on the vPub. The Barflies finance it so that Google doesn't have to with its ads. Thank you very much to all my wonderful dedicated Barflies. Thank you for your support. It's separate from Patreon. The channel, the reason that I can do this thing, the reason I can invest my time in the tech and the whiskey and everything, that is funded fully by Patreon supporters. The Barflies make sure that this stays ad-free. John Delacosine has also put in a few wee stickers in there. John is also a member of the Aqvavitae Barflies. And I've also got a wee dram here from Lee Hosey, the Whiskey Fly. Lee, so good to see you in again. My first visit to the vPub for a long time. Cheers, Roy. Lee, it doesn't matter. As long as you've been healthy, as long as you've been enjoying your whiskey, and as long as you're still happy to be here. Lee, it's wonderful to welcome you back, my friend, and thank you for your dram. Cheers to Daniel. Cheers to Lee. Cheers to all of you. Cheers. And Sugar Kitty Usta has put in a link to Whiskey Novice's channel. If you're not a subscriber to Jim, Whiskey Novice, he's what a great guy. Just go over and kick back and spend a few whiskey videos at Jim's pace. It's a wonderful pace to enjoy your whiskey with. So yes, let's quickly kick off with... of course, if you're watching on the replay, please look at the timestamps underneath. You're going to work out that I've put timestamps there to help you skip to the relevant whiskies, or if you need to check back and re-watch anything again, the timestamps underneath will hopefully help you. Thank you so much for watching on the replay. Jimmy Jazz has bought my wee dram today. Currently no plans for Scotland, only 5 nights, but I heard I might see you anyway in mid-November. Fantastic. Mid-November. So that's Bristol, isn't it? Jimmy, superb. That means that you're coming to the UK, but you're probably not going to make it to Scotland. Regardless, I don't mind where I see you, as long as we can say hello and raise a wee glass. And Ronald is here saying, so you guide us to whiskies that are, so our money is spent better, and then we want more of it, and we do spend more. But that's going to happen anyway. Your whiskey journey is going to be a cookie trail of bottles spent. And lots of those bottles you're going to be able to be very grateful for, at least just experience again. But only some of them will you want to replace again. I'm going to hope to find the bottles that you will be very grateful that you had, and ones that you do want to replace again. That's my idea, Ronald. That's what I'm going to try to do anyway. And Jerry Miller has said, my wife really appreciates you keeping me out of trouble every Thursday afternoon. Thank you very much, Jerry. It's wonderful to have you here. And I'm glad you've got the support and indulgence of the wife too. And Sevar has bought me a wee dram too. Superb. And that looks like an Icelandic kroner. I'm not sure, but thank you very much, Sevar. Thank you, Jerry. And thanks also to the star, Jimmy Legg out in Nova Scotia. Cheers to no guest tonight. We have Roy all to ourselves. Jimmy, thank you so much. That's wonderful to hear. Honestly, thanks to you, Jimmy. Cheers. The vPub was turning into a very guest-themed format for a while, just because everyone was locked down. It was very easy to get guests, and I wanted to have all of these guests. And then I started to realize that maybe I wasn't so confident about running a solo vPub anymore like the old days. So I've had to kind of occasionally, maybe once or twice a month, take it back and do a wee solo session. I hope that's okay, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your kind words. It means a lot. And Martin Breeder is saying, hopefully some of the whiskies are available in Norway as well. Oh, listen, availability, despite us living in a time where we literally have never had so much choice in whiskey, really, even when we complain about availability, the shelf is still dripping with choice, let's be honest. However, you make a great point, Martin. Not all the whiskies are available all the time, everywhere. So the caveat is always, from my perspective, as being in the UK, sometimes that works for me, sometimes it works against me, and I'm sure it's the same where you are as well. Things are opening up a wee bit. It should get better. We should be able to travel again. And when we travel, it opens up other sources and other ideas. So it's good to have a wee bit of intelligence for when you do. Graham Young has bought me dram. Cheers, Roy. Excited soon to travel. Exactly what I'm talking about, Graham. Cheers for the unloved bottles. Several are reloved on my shelves. Benrinnes 23 in a glass here. So Benrinnes, I would say Benrinnes is an under the radar kind of hidden whiskey. It's wonderful. We do love Benrinnes. I'm a huge fan of Benrinnes. But the only official release from that distillery is the Flora and Fauna. So really, you're looking at independent bottlers. For Benrinnes, for Linkwood, so many of the Diageo distilleries are going to be treated the same way. Dillion, for example, so many more. I'm speaking tonight about whiskies that people have put lots of effort into branding as a core range representation from a very well known for us from a specific distillery. And yet, despite that core range being available and widely distributed and widely available, and hopefully not prohibitively expensive, with one exception tonight, somehow they manage to be not picked up by me, maybe by you. These seem to be distilleries that we don't talk a lot about for one reason, or in the case of the last whiskey tonight, another reason. Some of them are just whiskies we walk past, whiskies that we ignore, distilleries that we just don't seem to connect with. So it's my job to reach out and spend the money to discover if there's something that you should be connecting with to enjoy that distillery. And of course, most of what I'm going to speak about tonight, of course, is going to be from the perspective of an enthusiast. It is a big thing to remember. So when I bang on about natural presentation, when I bang on about availability and price and quality and engagement and all of these things, know that it's from the perspective of an enthusiast. And if you're just a casual whiskey fan, you might not be there yet. But if you keep following that cookie trail of whiskey exploration, you will end up at the level of enthusiast, and these things will become important to you. There's an inevitability there. However, if you're watching and you're in the industry and you are very, very happy with your 40% and your 43% gateway whiskies all over the place, there's a place for gateway whiskies at those strengths. I don't mean this isn't about being snobbery or being a snob or forgetting where I've come from in my journey. But there's too much of that right now, honestly. There's too much of the vanilla. It's boring. They're well catered for. Let's not even talk about blends. We're talking about malt whiskey here, and malt whiskey is a much more singular, defined experience. And when it's mistreated or mishandled, I get a wee bit frustrated. And that might come across tonight. I hope that's okay. Graham Young, thank you very much for your dram, and Zach Andrews as well, as a member of the Aqvavitae Barflies. Zach in Texas. Is there any chance that I'll get to shake your hand this year in a couple of weeks' time, my friend? That would be amazing. Antonio C is in saying hi. Roy Rossford is saying like Balvenie ? We won't touch Balvenie tonight, but it's very much on the list. Raymaster is saying, please don't hype up Benrinnes. It's my little secret, especially bottlings distilled before 2007 when they were still partially triple distilled, of course. And he's saying yes, when they still did more or less 3 times distillation. You're absolutely right, Roland. I get it completely. And I have had younger Benrinnes, and I've got to say I wouldn't put too much weight on the change of the distillation regime. Good Spirits Company have available right now a fantastic bargain of a 10-year-old, which is actually 11 years old, a 10-year-old Benrinnes labelled a North Star Spirits release. At cask strength, it's less than £60, and it's a beautiful whiskey. It's fantastic. It's very, very light in colour, but it's got weight and depth and body about it. It's pretty full on, explodes with a wee splash of water, and it brings out lots of creamy fruits. It's a fantastic example of Benrinnes post, or let's say double distilled Benrinnes. Don't discount it just because they did change. The flora and fauna is still partially triple distilled, 15 years old, but it's out there at 43%. So a lot of that weight and body is lost. No, right, there was a very good one, Benrinnes, under the Stronach label. Batch one, obviously, that's right. Stronach tends to be a single malt. We often don't know what's in the bottling. But I can imagine that I tried this from Andy Ardbaggy, gave me a 40-year-old Stronach, and it was quite incredible. And John is saying, for some reason, I always walk past Classic Laddie. Sorry, buddy, that just jumped there. I'll try and catch it. There is always something next to it on the shelf that piques my curiosity more, and that's despite its bright, bold blue colour. Quite interesting. Let's get started. I'm going to just bring up. We're already quite a few minutes in, right? 20 minutes in. I'm going to bring up the first, and this is something that I'm very grateful about, and a wee bit frustrated too. There's a man in the whiskey industry, Dennis Malcolm, and he's still very sprightly and youthful and full of energy, to my eyes at least. And it's incredible to me that that man has been in whiskey for 60 years. He's been in the industry for 60 years. So there's lots of celebrations going on about that just now. There's been a documentary made, fronted by Christopher Coates from Whisky Magazine, to celebrate the achievements of Dennis Malcolm. And I think that's fantastic. But I also think that, and I don't want to take anything away from the fantastic career of Dennis Malcolm here, but I also think that it's quite striking how very little Glen Grant I have on the shelves at any point in time. I've had Glen Grants over the years, but they seem to be just kind of casual visitors that arrive and disappear almost as quickly as they arrived. That's odd, but it's also quite telling. Actually, for a long time, this is a wee bit tongue-in-cheek, but there's some truth behind it as well. My favourite Glen Grant was a 5-year-old Glen Grant. It had a 5-year age statement on it, 40% ABV. You can buy it for €14 in Italy. So when I used to go along to Italy, I would occasionally pick up a wee bottle of Glen Grant 5-year-old, and it would be fantastic to use as a mixer, pour it on ice, really light, apple crisp, spirit forward, but just really honest whiskey, 5 years old, basic presentation, very inexpensive. That was my experience with Glen Grant. So when I tried the Major's Reserve, when I went in and tried the 10-year-old, when I went in and tried other age-stated Glen Grants, I never found anything that engaged me, that took me beyond that kind of generic apple crisp, orchard fruit, light fruit, white fruits, occasionally tropical, space sidey, generic style. Sorry, Glen Grant. SMWS Glen Grant releases have been amazing. Fantastic. Much more fruit, much more vibrance, much more life in them. I always felt let down and disappointed as an enthusiast by Glen Grant's official releases. I don't know if you feel the same. Dribs and Drams has bought me a wee dram. I don't want to miss that, buddy. And he is saying, I just got Glenlivet Nadura. First full batch, FF1120. Okay, I never pick up Glenlivet, but hey, it's unchill filtered. But do you know if it's coloured? How can you put Nadura on the label and colour it? Nadura literally means natural. So if they're adding colour to that, please, Dribs and Drams, never buy it again. Literally, their headline is natural. It's my understanding that it's fully natural. It's high ABV, of course. It's cast strength released from Glenlivet, the Nadura. It's clearly unchill filtered, and I very much hope that it's natural colour as well. However, the fact that you're asking a question shows the glaring omission there. Just put it on the label. Just put it on the label. Everyone is in saying, ahoy, malt mates, good to see you. Fantastic. And Tweedley is congratulating Whiskey Novice on his 1,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Jimmy Legg is saying, I think Glen Grant has to get quite old to be interesting. I would agree with that. Old Glen Grant. I have a very, very old Glen Grant. It came up recently. I think it was on a lock-in from the 1970s, actually. So 1960s distillate. And my goodness, it's just fabulous, despite being at 40%. Old Glen Grant, whether it's from maybe a vintage time or if it's been matured long enough, can be wonderfully engaging. However, I've got one that I am already loving. In my glass that I've been enjoying this evening is a Glen Grant, a good Glen Grant. It's not perfect. There are some issues here that we have to just get out there, but this is a super encouraging thing. Whiskey 101 is saying, according to the German watchdog website, it has E150A in Nadura. So there you go. Nick Stilton-Massey is saying that Nadura could actually be coloured. Literally, a whiskey that's called the Glenlivet Natural. We need clarification here. I think that is an abomination right there. Desperately sad. I'm going to talk more about colour tonight. In fact, I'm going to get brutal as I talk about colour tonight because it's a brutal thing. Tweedley is saying, great topic to explore. Hope to bump into a few folk here at Stirling at the festival on the 30th. Thanks, Roy, for the continued quality content. Thank you for hanging out with me, buying me a wee dram. I'm not going to make the festival this year, but there is no doubt I will in the future. And I hope that I can bump into you wherever that may be. Cheers. Let me show you what I am sipping. Falsgraph is saying, I don't consider myself to be at your level of enthusiasm, but I have a thing for anything natural and well presented. Food, music, you name it. Come on, it's the modern way, isn't it, Falsgraph? It's the way that we're enjoying things now. We live in the information age. We can discover what is hidden from us these days, most of the time. I would like to find out what Glen Grant are holding onto here. Look at this wee whiskey. Take this in. Wonderful, wonderful stuff here. This is the Glen Grant Batch Strength First Edition, and look at that ABV. 50% ABV, 15 years of age, great age statement on there, and great to see that high ABV. So immediately you're drawn into this thinking, oh, wow, this is vatted from deep stocks of Glen Grant, 15-year-old stock. They're really kind of showing you what the distillery can be in the mid-teens years. Now, for me, a 15-year-old whiskey, that's the sweet spot right there. 15, 16, 17 years old, especially if it's not too heavy in the sherry side of things, if it's got some balance, some spirit still in there as well, and the cask has not been too heavy-handed, this is kind of me zoning in on the sweet spot. That colour is the sweet spot of colour for me. Look at what it's doing to my face there. It's kind of a very, very pale copper, a light yellow amber, not too off-putting, just a very generic whiskey colour. As Ralphie would say, it's the colour of pish. That's where we're at here. I find this a good, enticing colour. However, I can't celebrate it. I can't talk about it too much because guess what's missing here? No mention of the colour. No mention of it being natural, which is a wee shame and a missed opportunity. At 50% ABV, you're really hoping that they haven't chill filtered it. However, that's not always the case. Higher ABV whiskies are often chill filtered. So unless they write it on the label, we're left wondering. However, I'm going to tell you that the way this plays, the way this behaves on the palate, all the kind of Glen Grant things are there. So we've got some lovely light white fruit. I've not put water in this, but I have put water in a previous dram. I'll do it in a second because it really brings this thing alive. Very, very, very typically clean, inviting, well-balanced, very honest, straight sit-up type Speyside style of whiskey. Slightly malty, not too heavy on the vanillas, not too heavy on the lemons, not too heavy on citrus. Everything is there, but just in light check. It's leading here with a brighter fruit. And it's nice. The malt is more kind of biscuity. It's soft. It's lightly spiced. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to Glen Grant. The arrival is creamy. The arrival has some body about it. Glen Grant is often just too thin. And it finishes on a nice spice. The development is good. There's a nice mid-palate peak there. where it gets communicative. It's not linear. There is engagement here. There's character to connect with. And the finish is longer than you might expect for the style of whiskey. It's still going on, and it's a lovely malty spice. Think salted caramel and a little bit of white pepper, a little bit of a pepper on the finish. Not heat pepper, but lightly spiced, like a soft white pepper. What I'm going to do is just put a tiny drop of water in this. There's not much in this glass here. Just put a wee tiny drop of water. Now you're thinking, what are you doing there if that's only a wee tiny drop of water? That's not really doing anything. You're not diluting it. Exactly, I'm not diluting it. What I'm trying to do is just use a few drops just to get a bit of a reaction going in the glass to see if it changes it at all. And I don't care if this is placebo. I don't care if this is not happening. My brain, my senses tell me this is happening. Fruit is just everywhere now. So now we can actually define some fruit. It's like that slightly tropical, slightly kind of sweet pineapple, but it's more of a kind of bright white fruit. It's a white grape and white, like melon, that kind of fresh fruit salad thing. So the slightly tart, tight apple side that was there at the start has kind of loosened up, and it's gone sweeter and more ripe. There's a bit of a fresh white linen type note as well, so it's gone a wee bit floral too. Wonderfully clean, wonderfully summery, wonderfully inviting, wonderfully representative of what Glen Grant are actually producing, rather than the weak and watery, easy to enjoy, easy sipping, easy drinking 43% entries that they have. And just that wee drop of water in there. It's wound back the spice a wee bit. No, the peppery thing is still there in the finish, but that mid-palate peak has kind of been flattened out a little bit. Everything is a bit more rounder. And there's a nice kind of coating here as well. There's nice oils in this whiskey. There are nice oils here. So not only am I excited that there's a release, a naturally, let's say a slightly more naturally focused product coming out of Glen Grant, I can actually have something on my shelves here from that distillery that is an official release that's much more representative of what I've come to enjoy from them through independence. That in itself is something to celebrate. I am very happy to have a Glen Grant back on the shelf again. Is it all about that ABV? No, it's a very well put together whiskey with a good age statement on it at a reasonable price. It's £60 for 50% ABV, 15-year-old age statement. That's a good price. It's a very good price, and it's a good whiskey. If you're at the enthusiast geek end of things where you're looking for character, super interesting, old school, traditional, bold, heavy cask influence, sometimes a wee bit challenging whiskies, this isn't your bag. This is very clean, balanced, light, and honest, I hope. I would love to be able to celebrate that colour as being natural. I would love to be able to know that there have been no filtration, no aggressive filtration used in the production of this whiskey. That would be wonderful to know. But Glen Grant, it may be on the box. I threw away the box a long time ago when I bought this. It may be on the box, but if it's not on the bottle, come on. We shouldn't be relying on packaging here. It needs to be on the bottle. Not everybody keeps. I don't keep packaging. I intend to open it so the packaging gets tossed. I've missed some drams. Fantastic. P. Walker has joined the Aqvavitae Barflies. Thank you so much, P. Walker. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to wind backwards and make sure I haven't missed anybody. Sandy McDonald as well there. Fantastic, Sandy. You've bought me a wee dram, and you're saying, since I started watching you about a year ago, my wife thinks I'm having an online affair every Thursday night. Glen Scotia 12 cast strength in the glass. Fantastic, Glen Scotia 12 cast strength. I wonder where that one's from, Sandy. Fantastic. If you are going to be having an affair, have an affair here with us. Fantastic. A whiskey affair. Sandy, thank you very much for your dram, my friend. Dajo021 has bought a wee dram as well, saying terrific channel. Thank you, Dash. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support as well and your virtual dram. I've also, oops, that's jumped. It's Warner from the States. He's saying, cheers, Roy. I like the Glen Grant 15-year-old at 50%, probably the most memorable Glen Grant I've tried. Salute. Thank you very much, Warner. Wonderful to have you here. And Anthony Dunn is saying, those Ralphie visits rubbing off. Integrity bottlings, natural colour, non-chill filtered, age statements. Love that everyone wants the natural product. It's just a modern theme. As you know, I'm planning to go to Texas a week tomorrow, and it might threaten the Thursday night vPub. However, I might try to put together a small vPub, a compact vPub, a short vPub. Can such a thing exist? And I want to talk about how the modern dynamics are affecting whiskies exactly on the theme that you're talking about, Anthony, because I think it's an interesting topic. More on that. Stay tuned for that. I know it's. I know tonight is overlooked single malts, but don't you think the whole category of single grain is overlooked? Absolutely, Thomas. You get good single grain product, a good blended grain product. It's wonderful, and it really does make you sit up and say, wow, there's lots to explore here. And yet I always end up back in malt whiskey. It's malt that I love. It's malt that's brought me in. It's malt that's engaged me. So I even although I do explore grain whiskies and I have grain whiskies on the shelf, really some really good ones, when I go out and spend my money, it tends to be to explore more malt. But you make an absolutely good point. And Warner talks about the Glen Grant 15-year-old. It's interesting. He's tried that, but it's new to us in the UK and Europe. It used to be available on the GTR thing. So lots of GTR global travel retail whiskies are suddenly available to buy online now because guess what? There's not a lot of travel going through airports and duty free and that kind of thing. So people are able to buy it now. And Glen Grant 15 was available in North America and also through some global travel retail centres. But we haven't had it available to us here. So it's good that we can get it now. Kevin Bryant is in, and Connor Smith is in as well. Kevin is saying, even Roy sipping on a green spot, I forgot how good this whiskey is. One of my favourites, even the 40%. I love it. Sipping from my Solera bottle, says Connor Smith. Currently, I'm enjoying this current creation, but not long before it changes. Some bottles to add. It's a wonderful thing about Soleras and Infinity bottles. When you do get them into a sweet spot, it's kind of that bittersweet thing. I'm not going to be able to maintain this. I'm going to have to change it. But Connor, you know better by now. Just leave it for a wee while, and it always seems to come back. You just blend out the mistakes, right? And Brendan McKenna is in buying me a wee dram saying, cheers, Roy. I really enjoy these vPubs. All the best. Well, let's start. Thank you very much, Brendan. Thank you all for your drams. Moving on. Let's celebrate Glen Grant. Well done. Giving you a 5 out of 10. Why I'm only giving you a 5 out of 10? I'm not scoring the whiskey. I'm talking about as a launch, as a product. Because you've given us something that's actually really good. If the words natural colour appeared on that bottle, if the word non-chill filtered appeared on that bottle as well, you would find a lot of enthusiasts celebrating that whiskey. A 15-year-old, 50% ABV, good quality, easy to enjoy, very easy to drink product with lots of engagement in the glass for £60. Everybody should be talking about it. But you've held out on us a wee bit there. Come on. This is 2021. Tell us about the product. Tell us. Say the words. Good job, Glen Grant. Well done. I've enjoyed this, and I'm very glad to have it on the shelf. Let's move on to something where I can get my rant on. Going to keep a wee bit in the glass, put it to the side so I can come back to Glen Grant. Being a light whiskey, want to see how it holds up on the back of some stronger things. Dearie me, dearie me, dearie me. I'm going to hold up a Fettercairn here. Perfect age statement. Right in the sweet spot. 16 years old. Fantastic stuff. ABV, 46.4% ABV. Fantastic stuff. Wee bit suspicious about this colour. It's got my spidey senses kind of going ding, ding, ding here. Okay. But I bought this. I went ahead and I bought it. And I bought it because of a gentleman called Jason Bradford. And Jason sent me a sample of Fettercairn. And I opened it probably within a day or two of getting it, because it was just sitting here and I was in the mood and I was curious. And I was made curious by Phil Dwyer at Whisky Wednesday. Phil has a fantastic palate. I like listening to Phil. I like listening to his content. I like listening to his opinions on whiskey. And he has never really steered me wrong. Phil wasn't talking about this Fettercairn 16-year-old. He was speaking about another Fettercairn altogether. But I decided to risk a purchase here. This is a global travel retail release. How do I know that? Because it's in a 1 litre bottle. Why would a 1 litre bottle be retailing? I bought this whiskey in the hope that Fettercairn had turned a corner. 16-year age statement is great, 46.4% ABV. So with that ABV, I'm looking for that statement, non-chill filtered on the box. But it's not there. And there's nothing about natural colour on the box or bottle either. Hey-ho, we're in the same situation as we are with Glen Grant. But look at the difference in colour here. Similar age. They don't talk too much about cask makeup and things like that, but one is the colour of Coca-Cola, whereas the other one is the colour of something lighter than Coca-Cola. I'm not going to say what Ralphie would say. Again, I've already said it. So this is super dark. I'm not pouring from this bottle tonight. I'm not. If anybody comes to the vPub and they like this whiskey, I pour it for them and they like it, they're taking it home. They can go home with this bottle. I really do not enjoy this whiskey, and let me try to articulate why. Anthony Dunn is saying, why make a 50% ABV bottle, then chill filter and colour? Surely their target market is us. We want the product unadulterated. It's confusing. It's neither meat nor fish, Anthony, and I agree with you fully. And Bruno Mello is asking, is it matured in sherry casks? Well, the 16-year-old is actually using a significant amount of chocolate malt in the mix. That's a good message. And then it has a finish in sherry and port casks. So there's a suggestion there that we should be expecting a darker whiskey. As dark as this? Need to be very active casks. I'm going to suggest something to you, and you're going to call me out as being crazy. On certain whiskies, at certain times, I think I can taste caramel colouring. I think I have tasted caramel colouring in its raw state, and I'll never do it again. It's just one of the worst experiences ever. You wouldn't want to put it anywhere near your palate. Don't get it on your teeth. Don't get it anywhere. It stains really badly. It's not meant to be consumed, certainly not in that state. It might even be dangerous to do that. I had a cocktail stick worth of it. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you why I don't... why I think that this has had heavy use of caramel colouring. The sample that Jason sent me was one of Fettercairn's warehouse releases. And on the back of having that sample from Jason, the very same evening, I went out and sourced a bottle of warehouse number 2. So enamored was I with Jason's sample. I sat there and I finished the whole sample he gave me in one sitting that evening, and sip by sip, it changed and switched on me. And I thought, not only is this good whiskey, but it's very interesting whiskey. And I'm going to uncork this again and hope that I can have the same experience with you tonight. This is Fettercairn's warehouse release number 2. Almost the same ABV here. We've got 48.5% ABV, a couple of percent higher. Fantastic. Oh, what's this? Information about the cask. Wonderful stuff. So they're telling us that it's 62% first fill ex bourbon and 38% first fill ex rye barrels. This is great information. This is information about the cask type. This is wonderful stuff. Well done, Fettercairn. 48.5% ABV. No age statement. No age statement. But then you spend a bit of time looking at the presentation, and it's actually on the back of the box. It doesn't tell you on the bottle, I don't think, but it tells us 2009 for both cask types. So we're speaking about a 10 or an 11-year-old product here. I suppose at a stretch it could be a 12-year-old, but unlikely. I think it's more likely to be an 11-year product. So we've now got an age statement. We've now got cask information. Fettercairn, You're indulging us. This is amazing. And you read a wee bit more, and it says natural colour on the back. It actually says the words. I can't believe it's a box of Fettercairn I'm holding up, and I hope that focuses there. I hope that, come on camera. Look at that, right above my fingernail there, natural colour. And look at this on the front as well. It's going to be really difficult to get this focused on, but if it comes in there on just down here, non-chill filtered. This is a naturally presented Fettercairn. It is no coincidence that it's the best Fettercairn I have ever tasted. And that's despite having a significant proportion of rye casks in there, which suggests to me that it might be something that's odd or jarring. But thanks to Jason Bradford, I was able to try this. Through the generosity of the community, I was able to try it first and discover that it's a damn good whiskey. Do you need some icing on the cake? This is an affront. This was nearly £90. I was suckered. You don't need to be suckered. Please don't buy this. This was £54. I know that's 5 years older or thereabouts. The experience is not even comparable. It's a wee bit tight. It's a wee bit... We can't really review whiskies. This is an uncorking. We're not reviewing anything here. So let's leave it in the glass for a minute, and I'm going to show you why I think this is so bad and this is fantastic. Connor Smith is saying, I don't think there's an artificial taste sometimes, but I haven't ever thought even 50, but that could have been it. I'm going to get to that in a second. Nearly all the Fettercairns have E150, including the 28-year-old. Still, I don't say no, just try before you buy, right? Well, it's not black and white, E150A or no E150A. What if that genuinely some people don't use it cynically and they've got something that they're trying to keep as consistent as possible and they use a tiny amount to lift? That's often what we're told, right? A tiny amount and it's impossible to taste. Fine, okay. It's single malt whiskey. It's very organic. It's very fickle. It fluctuates batch to batch, year to year. It's by definition, it's a batch made product. We then put it into another fickle organic vessel to mature it. Unless they have deep, deep stocks, it's very difficult to ensure that consistency of flavor profile each release and color each release. So if they dial in the flavor profile, that's the temptation then to use color. I say, forget it, let it go. Let one be paler than the last. We need to start teaching the community who buy with their eyes, teach the customer who buy with their eyes. Saw something wonderful on Twitter a couple of months ago, and it was whiskey enthusiasts. Natural color, please, natural color, give us natural color. And then they see something like this, also whiskey enthusiasts. Ooh, look at that color. This, to a lot of people, is enticing. Not so much to me, this is kind of more my color of whiskey. I've come to realize that this style of whiskey is kind of more what I seem to enjoy. This is still a wee bit quiet. I know this is going to open up because I've already tried this from Jason. But let's leave it sit in a second because I'm going to show you something here. In fact, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pour a tiny amount of this whiskey. If we talk about taking one for the team, that's really what this is. I have never shared a whiskey on the channel and said that this is unpleasant, but this is unpleasant to me. I've given this to quite a few people, and some of them have not been as offended as I have been with it, but nobody's really said, wow, that's an excellent representation of a 16-year-old Scotch single malt whiskey. The nose is off-putting to me because I'm now associating the nose on this with the palate that I've come to understand. Caramel, to me, also has an effect on texture. I think it flattens the whiskey out. I think it's also used as a wee bit of an emulsifier. I think that it's sometimes used to lift and enhance a whiskey, and that's because it is something that not only affects flavour, but it also affects texture. When it's overly used, in a heavy-handed way, and it's put in front of somebody that is sensitive to that, not necessarily sensitive to the flavors or taste of caramel, but that kind of palate that I don't really enjoy this, I really get put off quite quickly. I'll have a wee sip. So any suggestion of kind of nuttiness and soft spices and fruits and Christmas sherry casks, port casks, that's the things that you're looking for in here. It's kind of drowned out by this kind of treacle-like thing. I don't know if everybody's familiar with treacle. Some people, I think, would maybe use molasses or whatever as a tasting note. That's not often a negative thing, but in this sense, it's a wee bit negative because this is sickly. And sip by sip, it builds and becomes more and more sickly. Let's have a wee sip of another Fettercairn. Oh, just look at how this is on the glass. Let's have a wee look at this one. I'll try and get my eye out. It's coating the glass a wee bit, but this one is literally stuck to the glass. I hope you can see this. Come on, camera, help us out here. Focus on this, please. This is, I think it's quite difficult to see. You need to trust me on it. So let's have a wee sip. It's clean and it's vibrant and it's alive and it's fruity and it's spiced. This is the type of whiskey you're sipping and you immediately want to go back and have another sip. This is another one that you're going to this is one that you're going to pull a wee kind of inquisitive face and wonder what's going on. This is flat and linear, engineered. This is alive. This is interesting. There's a long, lovely green element. This is herbal. It's like almost like sage or something on the finish. There's a long green herbal, grassy, not floral, not kind of, but herby grass on the finish here. Very lightly spiced. This is not salty in any way, but there is a kind of suggestion of a kind of mineral thing here. It's not texture, it's not chalky or anything. It's almost like like some kind of soluble tablet maybe, or some kind of mineral. It's difficult to articulate. The rye is present here. You're getting, that's probably what's bringing this dry, grassy, herbal finish thing on the end. It's here again. But it's that light ginger spice, that lime zest. Wow. Like lime and ginger on the finish. This is a whiskey that you want to go back and drink more of. This is not only a good quality whiskey, it's interesting. I'm going to show you all something now. I'm going to clear the decks a wee bit here, and I'm just going to dwell on this a little bit. I'm going to show you a bottle. I've shown this before, I think, of caramel colouring, and I'm hoping that the camera will focus on that nicely. Now, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is this is a clear glass bottle. This is not a brown glass bottle, and this has been sitting like this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm going to tilt it up. You can see about a week or so, or 2 weeks ago, I did tilt it up and it filled to this line here that you can still see. So even despite the fact it's been lying down for 2 weeks or more, it's still staining this from weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and it's still staining this section darker from a couple of weeks ago. You can see that it's clear glass. If you look here, if I was to take the cork off, which I'm not going to do, you would see that there's some areas under the cork that's clear glass too. But this glass has been stained by this E150A that's in this bottle. Now, to demonstrate this a wee bit more to you, I'm just going to stand it up and I'll show you just how thick and viscous this is. And it's going to fill up to that darker line. You can see it just disappearing there. Now look how fast that stuck to that bottle. Now, of course, this is super, super concentrated here. But don't think for a minute that what we're looking at here is a naturally derived product through just caramelizing some sugar. No, that's not how they're making E150. E150A is made at an industrial scale using industrial processes. And it's much like anything. If you want to know how something is made, you end up being often put off a wee bit. But this is what they're using to make our whiskies more pleasant to our eye. This is what we're using to make whiskies consistent. This is what we're using because the customer is uninformed. They are not stupid. They are uninformed. They don't know this. How long do you think we are going to get away with putting something like this in our products and not telling people that it exists? Germany insists on it for a reason, the right reasons. If you're going to put this in a product, you should tell us that it's there. For whatever your justification is. Customers buy with their eyes. Oh, it's for consistency. I'm telling you now, and I want somebody from White & Mackay to come out and tell me that I am wrong. I think that E150A is used cynically. And I think that in extreme cases like this, you can taste it. Whiskey Throttle Daniel is suggesting that I drink some from the bottle. I've tasted a cocktail stick of this, and I will never do it again, Daniel. It's not pleasant. Jimmy Jazz is saying it looks like tar. It behaves like the thickest oil you've ever seen. You can smell this. When you open this and you nose this bottle, anybody that ever comes here, they're welcome to try a wee taste if they want. I really don't recommend it. Luna Aaron is saying, but shouldn't companies be allowed to target different groups with their whiskey like Fettercairn does here? Absolutely, Luna. Absolutely. Fettercairn can go and treat their malt whiskey how they want to. Don't expect me as an enthusiast to sit back and just soak it up or be happy about it. When Fettercairn is capable of producing this is what we've been starved of. This is amazing. £54 for a 48.5% ABV whiskey with an age statement on there, or it tells us the age of this cask's involved. Natural colour and non-chill filtered in the label, £54. I've got a new hero whiskey here from Fettercairn. Who'd have thought it? Anybody that wants to come and take this away, do a wee bottle swap with me, they're welcome to it. I'm gutted and really disappointed because this was nearly £90, and that is the biggest mistake I've made in over a year of buying whiskey. Maybe longer than that. It's just... This is not what malt whiskey should be from any country. Certainly shouldn't be Scotch malt whiskey. You would put this down at that Fettercairn 16 in front of some people that were new into whiskey. Luna, you make a good point. Somebody that's really impressed by something that's quite smooth and easy going and drinking and sweet even. And they would probably sit and enjoy it. Anybody that's more than a few bottles into their whiskey journey, studying the topic, I don't think it's going to keep their interest. Alistair Gray saying, love the ginger sharpness of this Warehouse 2. Alistair, that's exactly what I picked up on, that lovely lime, zesty and lovely green note at the end. And I think I even said ginger. It's nice that we've got some consensus there. Kilter Drama saying, oh, Roy, you're selling that Fettercairn Warehouse 2. It's now on my shopping list. I'm telling you now, if you buy this at £54, you pour it in a glass, and you think I've steered you wrong, I'll buy the bottle off you. There's not a lot of this Warehouse 2 around. It's a wonderful bargain. Phil Dwyer at Whiskey Wednesday, you're spot on. I know that you were talking about Warehouse 1 release. The Warehouse 2 is a different makeup. It's a different edition. But Warehouse 1, I wonder if is this the influence of Greg Glass at White & Mackay, honestly, is it? I don't know. Warehouse 1 was the one that Phil was raving about. I couldn't buy Warehouse 1. I'm now going to seek it out. And I'm very, very grateful to have Warehouse 2. Ross is saying that the E150 looks a little bit like lamp black and black strap molasses. I guarantee you it's not going to be as nice as that. There you go, Aqvavitae. That said, plain caramel made at home is not exactly the essence of caramel they use. E150 is reworked, but I don't say it's a good thing. Luna Aaron's saying, companies get away with it as long as food producers in the US are allowed to put corn syrup in so many products without declaring it. It's not going to last forever, Luna. It has to come out. It has to come out. We are not going to be just continually consuming things, putting things in our systems when we don't know what's in it. It's just not, it can't endure. Ian Graham is saying anyone who loses on Is It a Space Side should have to taste some. And Andrew Glenn is saying, I think my partner has used that as fake tan. Bruno Mello is saying, do you know the quantity of caramel per cask? Is there any info about that? If we can't even get them to tell us whether they're using it or not, what's the chances of them telling us how much they're using? But I love the spirit. I love the idea. Peter Lee is saying, I wouldn't even use that caramel colorant in my cooking in the restaurant. And Andrew is saying, the SWA could knock the E150 nonsense on the head in an instant if they chose to do so. Scotch whisky is made from 3 ingredients, not 4. Raoul, Andrew, I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely right. If they want to say it's about customers buying with their eyes, it's about making a product palatable to an uninformed audience, it's not for the enthusiast, fine. Maybe your entry-level blends and things, you need to feel the need to do this, to colour your whiskies. But don't talk about natural and traditional and all these romantic stories that you write up on the back of the boxes and then load it full of this. And expect us not to talk about it. Whiskey Games, Matt Bishop is saying, I have Warehouse 1 and 2 fantastic drams. I bought these because of my experience at a Fettercairn warehouse tasting in 2019. Superb. Luna Aaron's saying, what I wanted to say that has to be declared on the label so customers can make an informed decision. We are absolutely in sync, Luna. Absolutely. Superb. So I've kind of had my whinge. I've let you see how ugly Spirit Caramel is in its raw form, let's be honest. And, don't tar everything with the same brush, if you pardon the anyway, some whiskies are going to be very, very lightly coloured, a tiny notch, right, and still be a nice natural colour or close to natural colour. And other whiskies are going to be cynically dark, like think of the black whiskies of the past, Loch Dew, and the more modern version of that, Bendu, which I think today in the modern day is made at a Speyside distillery. It was once upon a time made at Manachmore. It's not the type of whiskey that you would buy unless you wanted to have a sense of what caramel colour might taste like. And it's going to have a lot of similarities to that. Petehead Frank is saying, keep in mind there's a lot of, he's saying a lot of crap and a lot of things these days. I think whiskey is on the better half of the palate, even with E150A. That's right, but it's also the place that we hang out and we enjoy, Frank, isn't it? It's also the thing that we are super invested in, super emotional about, super passionate about, and it's important to us. And we know our palate, our experiences, our everything that we do in whiskey tells us that this is a much better path to follow. Glen Grant 15, despite its not full transparency on the label, is a good one to have. This is a magic whiskey to have. That rye spice, it's there, it's getting more all the time. I'm going to put a wee drop of water on this. I'm just so curious. Tiny wee drop. See if it brings out more of that spice. Nick is saying, I had an SMWS Dalmore cast strength natural colour, and it really shows just how much potential is hidden from us with their normal presentations. Shame, absolutely. Sweetens the arrival, brings a kind of creaminess to the arrival. It's gone kind of custardy now. I've killed off that prickle from the spice, I think. I'll play with it a wee bit more, maybe add a bit less water in future, just a single drop or two. Honestly, I think this, in its current state, This is a dream of a whiskey. I'm so glad to have it here. Fettercairn, thank you so much for bringing this release to us. It's wonderful. Thank you, White and Mackay, for doing something that says natural colour on the box, that says unchill filtered on the box, that tells us about the cask makeup, that tells us about the age of those casks as well. Thank you for doing all of that and bringing it to us at £54. Please make more of it, a lot more of it. We will queue up in droves. This is the whiskey that we demand. It's amazing. Good stuff. Curtis Campbell saying, I don't understand the preference of darker colour, natural or not. I find a lighter colour more pleasing. Maybe that's just me. Curtis, I am in the same camp now, but I remember a time that I was drawn to darker releases. I remember people, how they used to chase the darker SMWS releases. I remember how people used to rave and rave and rave about the Adelphi bottlings that you couldn't see through because they were just so dark. We are drawn to this really, really dark style in whiskey because we're remembering the really old, mature whiskies of the past, maybe, when it really was far, far less. There were far less bourbon casks in there. There was malt tended to be released after being long in first fill or good active refill distillery wood that was once upon a time held sherry. There has been a time in the past where whiskies were very, very dark in colour. But that was pre-internet. So we didn't know back then that they were using Paxarette or Pacharette, a concentrated sherry syrup that was dosed into the casks, rolled around, and then under pressure, that was forced into the wood to rejuvenate the wood. Now the SWA stood up and said, wait a minute, this is an additive. This is you adding something. You can't do this. No, no, no. Okay then. If you're not going to let us do that, and you're not going to let us have these sherry casks anymore because they're not available, there's no bulk shipment of sherry anymore, can we add a bit of E150A? What's E150A? Well, it's basically just, it's sugar, isn't it? Oh yeah, okay, you can do that. It's just, there are reasons for this, and there are places for it. But we need to be told when it's in there, even if it's in a blend. It needs to be on the bottle that it exists in there. And if it's malt whiskey, and you're going to use stories of traditional this and natural that on the box and the packaging and your marketing hype, don't follow it up by dosing it, because what you're doing is cosmetically altering the whiskey. It is smoke and mirrors. It's a fib. It's deceitful. Chill filtration is the same. Chill filtration is there as a cosmetic alteration. Sorry. Too much ranting about the same topics makes Aqvavitae a dull boy. Burkey73 saying, I used to love Bowmore Darkest until I was informed that it just had extra E150A, lol. I'm going to get in my soapbox about Bowmore a wee bit as well, Burkey, so hang around, my friend, please. But I cannot tell you how happy, I'm elated that I have a Fettercairn. Thank you, Jason Bradford. Thank you, Phil, at Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you, community, for bringing something that I have ignored to my attention. Sorry about the 16-year-old. That was a gamble I took on my own. Nobody recommended that to me. I took that risk on my own, and my fingers have been burned. But the Warehouse No. 2 release has made me want to go out and discover if there are any Warehouse No. 1 still around there. Dribs and Drama is saying, about that Glenlivet Nudura, I was miffed to not see a colour statement because of what you said. Maybe if the older ones were uncoloured, reviews talk about how natural it was. Like we talk at Dribs and Drams, yeah, literally Nadura is Gaelic for natural. Peter Lee is saying, I'm currently having the Fettercairn Warehouse No. 2 just now, thanks to Jason. Peter, tell me if you like the taste of that whiskey. Tell me if you're enjoying it. Tell me if you get any of that kind of lime and lovely fresh ginger, the green note on the finish. Tell me if any of it is making any headway with you. Bruno Mel is saying tonight is rant night. I hope that's okay. Andrew Butler is saying, if you've come to the realization that you're ranting too much, are you going to cease now so I can stop grinding my teeth? Andrew, if you've got something to add, if you've got something that would help temper my opinions here or make me see things that I'm not getting or understanding, share it with me, my friend. That's what this is about. Please do. Okay, let's move on to the next one. let's go here in this direction. Let's go to the Southern Highlands now. Fettercairn's in the Eastern Highlands. Where did we start tonight? Glen Grant and Speyside. So we're going to move into the Southern Highlands now. And this distillery has been so far off my radar and so much ignored by me that I think I may have only ever owned a single bottle from this distillery. And I didn't hate it. It wasn't offensive, but I didn't like it. It was just dull. It was a bit boring. It was a bit insipid. It was a bit bland. I wouldn't even call it vanilla because vanilla suggests there was something in there to engage, and it wasn't. However, I'm going to give them another wee chance. There's a guy at the Whisky Club that loves this distillery. I've had independents from this distillery. Not many, but I've tried them and have been much more enjoyable. I'm suspicious that the distillery is capable of interesting things. So here's another punt to give Tullibardine another wee chance. Now, you might look at this and you might see that this is called the Murray Doublewood. This is part of their Marcus collection. So this is the recalling people from the past, people that the distillery can connect with. And they're celebrating them in these releases under the Marcus collection label. This is the Murray Doublewood. And I have come across chatter in the community where people are enjoying this whiskey. And I thought, what? An enjoyable Tullibardine? How can this be? What am I missing? So let's uncork a wee Tullibardine, a Tully, and give it another wee shot. Ren is saying, Aqvavitae, I work at a liquor shop, and it's up to me to choose to let people know that E150A exists. The look on their face when I use Bowmore as an example is confirmation I should continue to do so. Good for you, Ren. It's just the right thing to do. We Want Freedom is saying, I have a Glenlivet Nudura bottled in 2015, no mention of natural colour. I just need to make sure that Craig Dearden is saying, can't beat a good rant though, Roy. And Anthony Lambert is saying, good evening, Roy. I had to work extra late tonight. Just got settled down with a dram of HP Dark Origins. Hope I haven't missed too much. Not really, but if you have, buddy, don't worry. I'll have timestamps underneath. Maybe I need to grab another glass. I don't think I've got enough glasses. I put 5 glasses out. I think we're probably going to try 6 whiskies now that I've tried the 16. So we've just uncorked this Tullibardine, and I'll tell you why I was drawn to. I think there's a good chance this has got a dot of colour in it, but it's not been heavy-handed, I think. Unfortunately, with the Murray, it doesn't tell us anything about the state of the colour. It tells us that it's a double wood edition matured in bourbon and sherry casks. It's pretty generic in the modern Scotch malt whisky landscape, but hey-ho, let's go with it. It looks at first glance that it's a non-age statement, but it's not, because it tells us in small writing on the label that it was distilled in 2005 and bottled in 2020. So we've got a 14 or a 15-year-old whisky in our hands here. The ABV is not Tullibardine-esque. It's at 46% ABV. It doesn't tell us anything about the state of filtration on this, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that maybe at 46% ABV, they've picked up for a reason, and they have not chill filtered this wee bottle of malt whiskey. Let's stick my nose in this. Okay. It's just, this is not a review, please. I'm not going to, if you uncork a whiskey, this is first impressions only. Orange. Burnt orange. Sweet, ripe orange. Dried orange. Maybe even like a sweet, maybe like mandarin side of orange. If you've ever nosed an empty cask, so you're getting all the kind of previous incumbent, you're getting a lot of that spirit coming, the aroma coming from the cask, but you also get, especially, an ex-bourbon cask, you also get a good nose full of char, a very specific kind of carbon aroma. And there's a wee bit of that here, which is probably what led me to say, I think I might have said burnt orange. It is citrusy, it's orange rind, and it's not tart citrus, it's not kind of lemon lime. This is, there's a freshness. And you maybe tease yourself into thinking that there's maybe a nice wee bit of cinnamon / nutmeg type spice on the nose, but it's still quite tight. I've just poured it. I should be leaving it in a glass for a wee while before I nose it. Suggestion here is 14 or 15 years old. So, and another great thing to talk about here is the value here. We've got a 15-year-old product, 46% ABV, like the Glen Grant. Come on, tell us a wee bit more. £55. The Glen Grant was less than 60. £55 for this, 54 for the Fettercairn. We would do well to ignore a wee bit less, I think. Let's hope the palate delivers. Excellent. So, a good whiskey, they say that you should take a sip, just throw it over the palate, throw it around, drink it back and not think too much about it. The second sip is going to be the communicative one, right? There's so much going on here that it's difficult, that I'm flustered and I need to slow down a bit and start and break it down slowly. This is orange whiskey. This is orange ripe citrus. Let's give myself a second because I'm missing some drams that's been bought, very generous drams. Martin McKelly has bought me a dram. I hope it is McKelly. Is that? It could be, I feel like it's McKelly, maybe Michelle. But regardless, maybe help me. I'm sorry, McKelly, we'll go with that for now. We were worried after the rant because of the Glenallachie 12 we are drinking is dark too. But the bottle says natural colour and non-chill filtered, and the whiskey is delicious. Because the statement on the bottle says natural colour, you can celebrate that colour. Doesn't matter how pale or how dark it is, you can celebrate it and use it to help teach you and bring your experience along as you enjoy whiskies. If it's artificially enhanced in any way, it's useless to you. It's meant to suggest something rather than be something. McKelly, I hope that you are a McKelly, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that well. Please help me if you're not McKelly. I'm going to apologise profusely. Anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying that. Glenallachie are doing what they're achieving that through use of active casks and active cask finishing. He's inherited a lot of stock, and everybody's talking about Glenallachie. There is nothing wrong with what he's doing. Re-racking, cask management, finishing, good quality investment in casks. However he's doing it, he's engaging us, and he's being honest. Glenallachie is being talked about for a very good reason. Whisky 101 is saying both German web shops show Tullibardine and the Murray as natural colour. So there is hope here. Fantastic. Jimmy Legg is saying, may I rant for a moment? Seeing non-chill filtered on the label and then finding no Scotch mist develops when I add water makes me angry, very angry. No, I don't get angry about that at all. Chill filtration affects different whiskies in different ways. And I think there are probably whiskies out there, I don't have a lot of experience in this, Jimmy, but there are probably there are people that are far more learned than I am that have said that there are whiskies out there that are affected hugely by chill filtration and other ones that, you know, not quite so much. I think that's going to be the same with Scotch mist. It's going to be dependent on how much of those glycols, those oils, those fatty acids, those esters, whatever the mix that's in there that causes whiskey to either cloud in the bottle when it's cold or to cloud in the glass when you add some cool water. It's going to be different one whiskey to the next. The most important thing should be less about how it's misting and what it tells us on the bottle and how much we're enjoying it on the palate, I think. Hell's Wood said, oh no, Peter Lee's talking to Helen and he's saying, why have we missed out on this Fettercairn? It's bloody marvellous. The lime and ginger comes out really late in the finish. Wonderful dram. Peter Lee, I'm glad that you're enjoying it as much as me. And I agree. I'm grateful to the community for putting this on my radar, and I'm just so happy to have found it. It's Michelle, but with only one L. Sorry, Michelle. I made a horrible assumption and I got it wrong. Sometimes you get it right. Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you for your dram and thank you for correcting me. I apologize. Michelle, you're very welcome. Cheers. Andy H is, okay, this is a good whiskey, this Tullibardine. I can't believe this. I'm raving about a Fettercairn tonight and I think I'm about to get Yes. So there is a bit of an orange syrup development here. There is on the finish. This has gone a wee bit like you've had a mouthful of orange cordial or orange syrup. It's not tart orange like you would get in a marmalade or something. It's not kind of zesty on the palate. It's a sweet thing. It's a sugar orange. But every time I've sipped this, even although I've been distracted, it's drawn me in. It's grabbed me. And I think that Tullibardine is not a distillery I would associate with being densely flavoured. This has got flavour. If anybody tries this, try it. Okay, if you're pouring it for yourself, it's going to be difficult. Okay, it's gone something. There's boiled sweet confectionery here. There's a nice kind of effervescence left on the palate, like you've been literally sucking on boiled sweets. It's very fruity whiskey, sweet fruit. But I think that you could fool yourself into thinking that this is much more sherried than the colour suggests. The palate is much more like American oak. Think of Aaron 18, American oak sherry cask. Think of the Royal Brackla 12. That's the kind of area I'm going to put this in. Now, this is much paler than both of those whiskies. But that really ripe orange fruit is drawing me in that direction where we've got that kind of rich fruit sherry thing happening. But we've also got the kind of roundness and the sweetness from American oak that makes it much less kind of spiced and dry and tannic and prickly like European oak, but much more juicier and rounder and riper. No ginger here. Maybe kind of a cinnamony nutmeg, maybe softer bacon spices. This is a soft, nice, enjoyable, rich dram that's much more densely packed than you would imagine for any Tullibardine. On arrival, there's a note that suggests kind of a dry biscuit. Wouldn't go as far to say cardboard, because it's still in the cereal kind of camp of things. But it's only there on the arrival. Quickly, you get this lovely, ripe, juicy fruit thing. Are we really saying that we've found 3 really good new whiskies to put on the shelf? We're a wee bit annoyed about the lack of an actual presentation on the Glen Grant and this Tullibardine. They could have gone just a wee bit further and celebrated the Marcus collection by making it all natural. But come on. Let's put it in a check and say, now we've got a 55 quid, 46% ABV, 14 or 15-year-old Tullibardine that I think I'd be happy to recommend to anyone. And that in itself is a bloody good discovery. I am very, very happy about that. Very happy. 3 good ones tonight. That's 3 for 3. Let's discount the Fettercairn 16. It doesn't feature. 3 for 3. Like the Glen Grant, like the wee bit of the Fettercairn. I'm going to keep a wee bit in the glass and not have too much. This is the 16. I'm going to put this away over to the left. I've got 1 clean glass left. I'll get another one, don't worry, because there's 2 more whiskies that I want to share with you. And one of them I'm very keen. A wee bit worried that it'll disappoint because it's one I've not tried. Andy H is saying, what would you do to try to make whiskey more popular with younger generations? That's the easiest question in the world, honestly. Make it as competitively priced as you can. Stop doing your market analysis with short-term views and saying, oh, the market will stand this 12-year-old to be out there at £65, £70. The market will stand this. We'll be able to talk about this, that. And the next thing, it doesn't need an age statement. We'll be able to charge £75. Show me young people that are able to go out and spend 60, 70 pounds on whiskey in their local spirit specialist or online. Don't tell me that it's that price is required in order to turn profit, because you don't see a price step change happening like this to this to this in order for them to make profit. That's not what's happening. The dynamics out there in the marketplace is driving prices very, very high. We've just come through a glut of 2 years worth of people hoarding, people buying far more whiskey than they actually need for various reasons. We're not going to get into the secondary market flip or all that kind of thing. I'm just as guilty as anybody. I'm part of the problem. I'm buying more whiskey than I need. We're all buying whiskey and we're hoarding it, especially if we find something that we think is going to be finite. We buy more than we need and we squirrel it away. All of these behaviors are pandering to people who are running a business. That's what they're doing for the now, to be profitable today. So that the longer term game plan, they can't all be Springbank. They can't all have that kind of ambivalence. They are, and by the way, I know that where you are, you're paying a lot more for Springbank. That's not down to Springbank. It's not down to the distillery. It's down to the supply chain. It's down to distribution, importers. It's down to taxes. It's down to lots of layers of complex reasons. And they don't want to put out a 12-year-old cask strength at £55, $55, $65 when it's right next to something that's a third more expensive. So they don't reduce the other one. They bump up the price. Prices are getting out of control, and now we're in a situation where that's going to be compounded by global inflation. It's particularly acute in the UK right now, but prices are going to rise generally. So Andy, if you're trying to encourage younger people to enjoy and get into whiskey, make whiskey that they can bloody buy. And younger people are not misinformed. They're not boomers. They're not Generation Z. They're not us. Younger people know how to find out information much, much faster than we do. They are very informed. Look at the craft beer scene. Look at anything that involves a wee bit of knowledge, a wee bit of passion, a wee bit of curiosity, a wee bit of... They know, but they can't afford it. Maybe they see it as aspirational, these expensive pricing, but if you want to get younger people into whiskey, make good quality whiskey that they can engage with. It's got a good natural story behind it, and that they can buy and they can share with their friends and they can talk about it, because young people then have the ability to drink for the sake of flavor and not for the sake of alcohol. Speaking as one of the younger generations, lol, although I'm spending 60 to 70, gladly see it go down. Connor Smith is saying that he's spending 60. You know what? Younger people will maybe go out and spend 100 quid on a nice shirt or something. Don't get me wrong. They do find ways to treat themselves and indulge themselves. But I think that it's a hard sell. Generally, if you're kind of casting your net widely and saying, no, we need to bring younger people into the category. Sorry, whiskey is already outside of the reach of the vast majority of young people. The pricing is exclusive. Jerry Mitchell, demonstrate what can be achieved in terms of quality at reasonable cost. Ian Graham, you're absolutely spot on. They do, and they almost do it with this belligerent ambivalence. They are torchbearers from what can be achieved, honestly. So when somebody tells you that Lagavulin is too cheap at £60 retail, tell them nonsense. Kilkerran, 16, fully natural, very finite quantities, £60. Don't tell me that Lagavulin's too cheap. What you're actually saying is the value of Lagavulin 16 is restricting you from pushing prices higher. That's what you're saying. Profit is being made, £55, £60 on excellent quality, 16-year-old whiskey. I'm sharing here an 11 or a 10, 11, 12-year-old product here. Excellent, fully natural, £55. Again here, 15 years old. We're hearing it's more natural than the label suggests. That's a shame, but it's still encouraging. £55. 15-year-old Glen Grant, 50% ABV, less than £60. Lagavulin 16 is very profitable. Whiskey is very profitable. I would like to see the distilleries make a bit more, the governments make a bit less. The supply chain in certain regions and certain territories are really, really taking the mickey, I know. Whiskey is already expensive enough, thanks. We Want Freedom is saying if they do save and save up to buy one, and then they don't like it, then it can put them off whiskey for years and years. No, that's what clubs are about. That's what knowledge is about. It's what exploration is about. If you put a bottle of whiskey in front of somebody for the first time, never tried whiskey, and they go out and invest in a bottle and spend 50, 60 quid on it, it's going to be a hard sell. We need a gentle hand. We need to teach people. We need to give them environments where they can step in and they can enjoy whiskey and understand what enjoyment in whiskey enjoyment is about, chasing flavour rather than drinking. Everyone saying, I've tried to introduce nice whiskey to my sons, 21 and 19. They are moving too fast to slow down and enjoy single malts, in my humble opinion. Chris, you're right. You cannot force, you can't crowbar. It needs somebody to be at the right moment. And whether that's a point in their life, an age, whatever it may be, if they don't have the curiosity, if they don't have the patience, wait a while. Hopefully they'll come back online. Hopefully they will. Time for a dram. Gregor is here. Good to see you, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Texas in a couple of weeks. Here's a winner to win the young. Let's make a clear whiskey. That'll work. Well, you can buy clear whiskey. I'm not sure it's going to be the thing that people are going to want to buy. And if they do buy clear whiskey, they're going to want to flavour it and make it not clear anymore. Dribs and Drams is saying in my province, Lagavulin 16 is $123. Lots of great stuff around at that price. Exactly what we're talking about. How can Lagavulin be? Dribs and Drams, you're in Canada. Actually, that's probably not that much higher because I think Canada's about $1.8 to the pound. But you're right, there are lots of other things. Falsgraph is saying, talking of ignored, I picked up a Tamnavulin sherry the other day, coloured, yes, but great bang for buck, and it was just by chance. Glad you're enjoying it. I think the Tamnavulin series is still very much ignored to me, Falsgraph, but maybe I'm glad that you found one that you enjoy. Maybe that's where I need to look. Drinking whiskey is a lifestyle, says Evan. Well, it's certainly something that enhances life. For me, it does. Too much whiskey is a problem, of course. It's about variety and variation and flavour, contrast, and I never tire of talking about it. It must be fun, right? Anyway, I've got a clear glass here, and I'm going to pour something into it. Something that I have declared and I've admitted on the vPub in the past. The only Bowmore I have here is independent Bowmore. I don't have any official Bowmore, nothing. The 12-year-old is something I once upon a time enjoyed. Those days have long since passed. The 15-year-old darkest, once upon a time I enjoyed, long since gone. Bowmore for me is just one of these legendary golden distilleries that everybody talks about. Everybody that's been into the whiskey scene longer than me talks about in such affectionate, heartfelt terms that I think sometimes they must be crazy. But of course, they're talking about Bowmore from a bygone era. They are not talking about the way that Bowmore is represented officially today in an affordable state. I have been tempted to buy the Bowmore Tempest as a 10-year-old product, but I happen to know I like it a lot. And if it wasn't 130, 140 pounds plus, I think I would have already had it. It seems that if you want good, well-presented Bowmore, you have to pay a lot for it. And if you're not willing to pay a lot, you end up getting served up this overly coloured, overly engineered, overly diluted tripe that is not representative of what Bowmore make. I'm talking about the non-age statement entry-level stuff. I'm talking about Bowmore 12, and I'm even talking about Bowmore 15. And I'll go one further than that and say I'm talking about Bowmore 18 as well. However, look at G Whisky, who recently reviewed a Bowmore 18-year-old travel retail exclusive, a GTR release that he fully engaged with, despite it being at 43%, and he wondered why more people were not talking about this. Well, I will gamble that more people are not talking about that because it was a travel retail exclusive, and the only reason that it's become available on the wider market, we can buy it in the UK now, is because of the restrictions on travel retail right now. So it's become available. Maybe people would start to talk about it. But I have reached out and I've bought a Bowmore recently. I'm ready to take one for the team. I'm ready to step out into a distillery that I don't connect with, unless it's some wonderful tropical mango dream from North Star Spirits, 18 years old and far too expensive, honestly, but wonderful whiskey. Nothing to argue about. And the best whiskey I tried in 2020 was that 18-year-old North Star Bowmore. Just loved it. Anyway, I decided to risk not only a Bowmore, an official Bowmore, and an official non-age statement Bowmore. Okay, I'll share with you what I've bought, and it's still sealed. So this is going to be a surprise. It's going to be an uncorking. Why was I drawn to this? Well, I kind of like the idea that they're talking about things that have been matured in the number one vaults, okay? Arguably one of the most famous warehouses that's ever existed in spirit maturation. That, and one of my all-time epiphanies was sitting in that vaults. I tried whiskey drawn straight from the casks in those vaults there in Bowmore, and choirs sang. It was really, really wonderful. And it frustrated that doesn't seem to be the whiskey that makes it into the general releases. But okay, that's always the case, isn't it? You're never going to have whiskey like you have in a warehouse, let alone one of the most famous warehouses in the world. But when you taste old Bowmores and independent Bowmores, and you hear the stories relayed about these old legendary whiskies, has the distillery lost its way? What's happened? Devil's Cask, fantastic. I can't buy it and I can't afford it. Tempest, 10-year-old, far too expensive. But maybe I should be judging it based on how it is in the glass, judging it for £140 whiskey rather than a 10-year-old whiskey. Okay, fair enough. But I don't feel comfortable enough with Bowmore as a brand to take that risk. So I'm going to more safer territory. This one is high ABV though. Oh dear, that's a muted pop. That's a wee bit better. Having to force it. Okay, let's not read too much into that. This is an uncorking. This is a neck pour. But it's a pleasingly pale colour. So this is encouraging right away. If there's any colour being used here, it doesn't tell us that it's natural on the label, but it's been very lightly done. So we shouldn't be getting that awful kind of flat, sweet, sickly palate that we talked about earlier. This is the Atlantic Sea Salt number one. Sorry, first release from the Vaults edition. And they talk on the label about uncovering the different layers created by the alchemy of the number one vaults. And this has been selected in order to demonstrate the salty side of Bowmore. On the box, they do talk about some other releases that exist, such as richness and fruitiness, peat smoke and things like that. But this release is all about Atlantic Sea Salt. Jimmy Legg is saying, if I could only drink cast strength Benromac for the rest of my life, I would be perfectly happy. Benromac is one of the ones that frustrates the life out of me, Jimmy. The owners, Gordon and MacPhail, have kept their Discovery series at 40% or low ABV, but their distillery labels and their connoisseur's choice, they've realised in response to growing public awareness and opinion, they've bumped up the ABV to 46%. Now, I couldn't get an answer out of them if that's anything to do with chill filtration. Remarkably, they're quite guarded, I think, and it's a difficult discussion to have, so they didn't talk about it. But Connoisseur's Choice from Gordon and MacPhail is now 46% ABV. Distillery labels, 46% ABV. Benromac has the ability to be the Springbank of Speyside. Experimental, skunk works, wine finishes, wine maturation, triple distilled, peat smoke, heavily peated, old school style, really, really engaging, really obvious old school character. 43% ABV, 43 on the 10, 43 on the 15. It's so... I think that we all expected the rebranding at Bowmore to bring 46, and it didn't. It just brought out more of the same. I hope that changes in the future, but it's going to be a difficult change for them to make now, so it's going to be interesting. Graham Fraser is saying, I've long suspected that Bowmore has never been the same since Jim McEwen left. Well, I don't know if it's down to one person. I think that what we're talking about tonight is bigger corporations, much larger scale ownership, and the pressures that come from that, making things to a formula that works on paper. But whiskey doesn't always want to play that game, right? So I think that what we see out of Bowmore is much more to fulfill a requirement than represent a distillery. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but that's what I'm suspicious of. Greg's whiskey again, he's saying a decent one, Roy. And Ross Fudd is saying, okay, I'll bite. Why does Lagavulin get all the love, but it's coloured and chill filtered? It gets all the love despite that. I think we're really frustrated by it, honestly. Lagavulin remains a fantastic whiskey and a fantastic ambassador. I talk about it often, and it's got a soft spot in my heart. But I would so dearly love Lagavulin. I would pay £75 a bottle for Lagavulin 16 if it was a few percent higher ABV, 46% plus, and if it was unchill filtered, and if it was natural colour. It only gets one tick out of those four because it's got an age statement, but it is chill filtered. It isn't natural colour. And the bottling strength at 43% means that if you drink it in contrast with so many other good quality Islay whiskies these days, it's left wanting. And it ends up being the gateway guardian for Islay, and it shouldn't be. Anthony Lambert saying, sorry, but I am a fan of Bowmore. One of my first malts and my gateway dram into peated Islay whiskey. I wonder which one it was, Anthony. This is quite a fresh Bowmore. So it doesn't talk about it doesn't talk about cask makeup on this at all. I should have maybe read up a wee bit on the box. I think I did read the box on this. It talks about the vaults, vault editions. It talks about the other vault editions. And this first edition represents the trademark sea salt tang of Bowmore, and a whiskey that opens out like the vast Atlantic Ocean itself. So it's full of stories here. Not much other than the fact it's telling us it's at 51.5% ABV. So why have I bought a non-age statement Bowmore? Well, I bought it because it was relatively affordable. I think it could be the most expensive one that we're having tonight. Yeah, it's £75. Let's forget about the Fettercairn 16, which is even more expensive again. We've done that now, but that's not part of the lineup tonight. This is the most expensive at £75 for a non-age statement Bowmore. 51.5% ABV. The nose on this is fresh, lemon scent fresh. Okay, yeah, I'll go with the saltiness. I'll go with the brine, sure. Would I have discovered it on my own if I was nosing that sitting in a quiet place and I didn't read the label? I don't know. But it is there's no doubt. There's also a nice kind of cake-like quality that I think is coming from that lemon thing. So you'd think about like some kind of, maybe like a Bakewell, a lemon Bakewell type note. There's a sweetness. And it's floral. And the floral side is kind of like a white flower thing, nothing specific, just a nice, fresh, clean, neck pour. It's tight, it's still uptight. I could do with leaving it for a wee while. I have no idea how old this whiskey is. Tinned peaches. Salt is there. Tinned peach. Not lemon, not tart, not zesty like it was in the nose. Sweet. Richer than I expected, but clean at the same time. Much softer, 51.5% ABV, unbelievable. This is much softer. You would drink this at, think it was 43, 45, 46 at the most. This is easy. This is a dry finish. Very dry and goes kind of slightly bitter, almost like olive oil on the finish. Green olives. Dry and medium finish. Doesn't last too long. Leaves you with that sense of slightly saltiness again. Clean. Zero faults in this. This has got Bowmore, that Bowmore character that can be off-putting. Sometimes it tastes like basil to me. Sometimes it's lavender. Sometimes it's grapefruit. Sometimes it's cat's piss. This tonight is tropical fruit, salt, drying, goodness. £75 goodness. Maybe. Honestly, maybe. Wow. Falscraft is saying in the last 2 years, Bowmore has been one of the purposely ignored distilleries for me. And Anthony is saying that it was actually the Bowmore 15 and Blackrock, non-age statement. Blackrock, I think I remember that one. There was a couple out at the same time with kind of different names, wasn't there? Was like Gold Sands or something. I can't remember the other ones. I don't have much memory other than that, Anthony. But I'm glad that it's brought you into the fold. Do you still connect with it? It sounds like you do. You still love Bowmore. I remember loving it in the past. Grace Whisky just saying it's matured in ex-bourbon casks only. Fantastic. There are 3 other expressions in this Warehouse number 1 edition series. The Atlantic Sea Salt is the first release of the 4 with other sub-names. They talk about the other ones on the back of this box. Yes, they talk about 4 notable layers characterise Bowmore. Whisky is influenced in part by the rare environment of the number 1 vaults. Each release in this 4-part series showcases a different layer. Atlantic Sea Salt, Peat Smoked Perfection, I guess that's number 2. Full-bodied fruitiness is number 3. And silky sweetness, number 4. So there we go. I was drawn to the first release, this Atlantic Sea Salt, because it sounded more appealing to me, but also it was one of only 2 available when I bought this. And since I've bought this, when I went on to check the pricing again tonight, it seems to have gone. I'm going to the Green Welly stop first. I'm going to Royal Mill Whiskies first. Good Spirits Company in Glasgow first. I'm going to Scottish Gantry. I'm going to Kinnaird Head Spirits up in Aberdeen. Why? Because they're supporting the OSWA initiative by promising that they will not bump up prices on anything that we nominate. And this is a wee note I got from Susie at the Green Welly stop. I'm trying to remember which one she packaged. Will it tell me inside? Yeah, it was the Tullibardine. And she said, see you at the vPub. So Susie obviously recognised who was buying the Tullibardine and sent me a wee message. Cheers to you, Susie. Thanks for the nice message. I think that maybe these vault editions are in demand because there are still swathes and swathes and swathes of Bowmore fans out there. So it might be difficult to get your hands on. But Greg, I'm glad to hear you tell me that this is exclusively ex-bourbon cask maturation. It certainly tastes like that. But it would be nice if it kind of told us a wee bit more on the packaging. Greg, I suggest that you've probably had to do some online research in order to discover that. Even if it's on the bottle, it doesn't take up a lot of space, does it? Look at all the space that's available here. Oh, Kilted Drummer is saying, I just bought the Fettercairn Warehouse 2. Kilted Drummer, I will wait patiently to hear. Slightly nervously to make sure that you've enjoyed it. Chris Polak is saying Blackrock, Gold Reef, that was it. And White Sands, I was getting the 2 confused. 17-year-old were the 3 Bowmores. Well done, Chris. Superb, thank you. And James is saying, Aqvavitae, shout out to Good Spirits winning Glasgow's favourite business. Absolutely fantastic. Those guys are, they're just great guys. Guys and girls, I'm meaning guys in the non-generic sense. Sorry, the non-gender sense. Just a great company putting community and tastings and support, and you walk in there if you want to spend a bit of time chatting, if you've got some time in your hands, they're more than happy to chat to you as well. I hope that your local retailer near you is as good as Glasgow's Good Spirits Company. And Anthony Lambert is saying, I have moved on looking for natural presentation these days, Springbank, Edinburgh, etc. But do still have Bowmore 15 and 18 on my shelf. Big, soft spot, ultimately. Anthony, nobody's going to deny you that. I have the exact same thing myself. Glengoyne frustrates the ribbons off me, and yet I still have a soft spot for it. I still owe a lot to that Glengoyne 10-year-old in 2005. I owe a lot to that Lagavulin 16 of 2009 and many more along the way. I get it. It's nice to have that. Listen, there is one more whiskey to enjoy tonight. How are we at? We're at 150. There is a quiz at the end as well. I hope it's quite a good quiz tonight. It's just me. I hope that you've had fun hanging out with me. I've got one more whiskey to try. In summary, £75 is probably a bit north of what I am comfortable spending on this Bowmore. But it's half the price of the Tempest that I really wanted. And, you know, even then, the other one I wanted, the Devil's Cask, is simply not available. I'm drawn to ex-bourbon matured Bowmore. I'm not into, I can't connect with the big, rich sherry monsters of the past, and the modern day sherry matured Bowmores don't sit well with me at all. This one is pretty interesting on first approach. I'll go one further than that. I actually have a Bowmore with that grapefruity, sweet Bowmore character in there, in balance and in check and enjoyable. The brine comes through on the finish. I talked about an olive-like finish. I said green olive, but maybe that kind of more dry, black, bitter olive. This is a lovely whiskey. I'm going to suggest, despite my reservations about the presentation on this, the only thing that checks the box here is the ABV. I think that this might develop and end up being a good whiskey to have on the shelf. I would like it to be about £10 or £15 cheaper, honestly, and I would certainly like to have a lot more detail on the label. I don't even care if some of the whiskey in this is way down in the low single digits. Really, it's decent. So I love, Roy, I so love agreeing with you, but I love disagreeing with you even more. Discussing whiskey with everyone here is the best. Jimmy, one of the best things to do is to sit with me and Sevi and I, when we sit together, our palates are not aligned in any way whatsoever. We can enjoy the same whiskies and we can appreciate them and say, yes, these are good whiskies. But he's drawn in a direction and I'm drawn in another direction. And it's fascinating to me. Scott Monroe is very closely aligned to me in terms of our preferences and things. And that's fascinating too. In whiskey, we do not need to agree. It's subjective. It really is. There are elements that are objective, but we do not need to agree. Jimmy, I'm very glad to have you here, whether we agree or disagree, my friend. Thanks for the dram once more. Cheers to you, Jimmy Legg. And this is literally £100 cheaper than the 18-year-old Bowmore that I love. This is a good whiskey, and it's getting better sip by sip. It's sweetening. This is a good whiskey. That's encouraging. I'm not going to suggest that you run out and buy yourself a Bowmore Vaults edition first release. It's expensive, £75. But I would suggest that if £75 is a common thing for you to spend on a bottle of whiskey, you might not be sad about this bottle. The Bowmore character is in there, so if that's off-putting to you, don't consider that it's dialed down here. It's there. But it's in check. This is a good Bowmore. I think it's a good Bowmore. Graham Fraser saying, can I add Glengarry? Yes. Auchentoshan? Yes. Glenkinchie and Dalmore to my overlooked whiskey list? Yes. Dalmore, there are whiskies in the lineup that are okay, but even the ones that are good are priced out. It's difficult. Glenkinchie, there's virtually nothing in the range. You know, there's not much there. We've got the 12-year-old. We've got the what do they call it? A distiller's edition. There's not a lot in Glenkinchie, but I'll always have Glenkinchie on the shelf for some reason. Auchentoshan, that's a difficult one for me, but I will revisit it again in the future. It will be part of this series. And Glengarry, we've talked about Glengarry in the past, Graham, and I think that Glengarry is often very, very good, but often makes me feel like it could be a wee bit better too. Interesting that Glengarry and Auchentoshan are the same company, as well as Bowmore, Lefroy, Gardmore, lots more. Yes. Doc is here, Macallan Fine and Rare, but Sevi and you both liked the 1996 Signature Klein Leash so much that you finished the bottle here. Yes, isn't it nice? It's probably dangerous when we agree on a bottle. Absolutely, Doc. Thank you for your generosity, my friend, and it's nice to see you in here. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, P.S. I have Tempest Batch 3. Ooh, 2011, just to let you know, Aqvavitae. Yes, Tempest is what I wanted, but it's expensive, Greg. I know I like Tempest, or the ones I've tried. Roland Whiskey Rare is saying, evening, Roy, just managed to join late tonight. Obviously, right in time. You drinking a Bowmore. Remember my gateway whiskey story I shared with you involving the Devil's Cask? Splendid. Roland, I talked specifically tonight about Devil's Cask. I mean, forget about the price. It's really difficult to even find, but it's wonderful to have you here, my friend. Welcome in. Jimmy Legacy and Graham Fraser, I can answer that. Yes, no, yes, no. Perfect. Hoyt is in here as well, saying Glenkinchie is good, but limited range. Absolutely. Did I see Eric Waite has just jumped past? Yeah, Eric is in. Good to see Eric. He's saying the best Bowmore I have had have all been independent bottles. I think, Eric, if you come across this Vaults edition, I think it's safe hunting ground for you. Yeah, I mean, I want to not jump in. I've been super enthusiastic about the Fettercairn. I'm right behind it. The Tullibardine, I'm also positively encouraged by the same with the Glen Grant. Great stuff. There's only one more left to go. I ignore this distillery on the channel, not because I don't like it. This is a distillery that if I see it on the shelf, chances are I'm going to grab it and buy it, even if I've already got a bottle at home. This is a distillery that is so characterful, so out there, so, carving its own niche, digging its own furrow, that it's compelling. But the other thing that compounds that is the fact that it's there 1 minute and gone the next, and you never know when it's going to come back again. Can anybody guess the distillery I'm talking about? It's a Western Highland distillery. So I bet you can probably guess which distillery I'm going to bring up. I ignore this distillery not because I walk past it, but because I never walk past it. And the reason I don't talk about it on the channel is an availability issue. Aberlour is ignored, says Hoyt. I agree. I am guilty of ignoring Aberlour, although I have featured the Abuna several times and one or two others in the past. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, watch my comment before that. Sorry, Greg, if I missed it. It might be more subtle and some more recent than other batches of the Tempest, to be honest. That said, the peat rate seems higher in Tempest, in my humble opinion. So Tempest, maybe at that 10-year-old age statement, maybe it's bringing out, it's maybe lets the peat display a wee bit more. But Bowmore is not a heavily peated Islay whiskey. The peat is there. It can be smoky. The smoke in this one tonight is very dialed back. It's more of a kind of adding maybe a savoury element, I think. This is not a peaty whiskey. If you're a peat head, this is not going to engage you, I don't think. Hopefully I picked up the right comment, Greg. And Jimmy Legg is saying, is it Brora? That would be Northern Highland. And I don't just grab it. Lots and lots of people. Louis Ochoa, Malt Minion Chuck, absolutely. Che Francis, spot on Che. Stefan Novak, Ben Nevis. I was actually in a Green Welly stop with Che. And if I wasn't already feeling guilty on how much money I'd spent on whiskey that day already, I'd have probably grabbed it because you had it on your shelf at the time. But I did pick one of them up. And Cohen is saying, new Ben Nevis is available. Absolutely. So we're talking about Ben Nevis. Now, I've got some other Ben Nevis on the shelf. I've got the Cast Strength batch number 1 sitting there. I've got the 10-year-old sitting there. We've talked at length about the Glencoe, the blended malt from Ben Nevis, in the past, the 8-year-old. This is a new one that intrigued me. So given the option to buy this is the, I think you pronounce this Coralish. The Coralish is the water source for Ben Nevis. This is a non-age statement Ben Nevis. However, it is at 46% ABV, and Ben Nevis does write on the label non-chill filtered and natural colour. So in this specific release, the 10-year-old is fully ticks all 4 boxes, A, B, C, D. This one only misses out on the age statement. Now, doing a wee bit of internet research, I'm led to believe that this is a nudge younger and fresher and brighter than the 10-year-old. But let's say it's a non-age statement and we judge it as such. £44 though. A wee bit pricey, but come on, it's natural product. The only thing it's missing here is the age statement, so let's judge it on the experience. The 10-year-old is £50, which is a wee bit more expensive for a 10-year-old whiskey. But anyone that buys it seems to want to keep it on the shelf, and they recommend it. And the reason that they're a wee bit quiet about it is because it's not always on the shelf, and they want it to hang around as long as possible. I think a lot of people are quite precious about keeping Ben Nevis a bit of a secret. I need to go and grab myself a wee glass. Let's give this a wee pour into my Jason Whiskey Wise, my friend Jason. Ooh, look how pale that is. Wow. I hope you can spot just how pale. We're speaking slightly darker than pale Chardonnay, maybe a notch darker. Wow. This is spirity immediately on the nose. The Ben Nevis thing is there. There's an old school, there's a very characterful nose to a Ben Nevis. But the first thing that's popping out this glass is I've just poured this, literally a neck pour, straight in the glass, straight to my nose. Spirity, spirit-led. It's even nosing a wee bit like a Loch Lomond. So if you're familiar with that slightly old school, kind of slightly almost industrial lick that you'll sometimes get in a Loch Lomond, especially a light young Loch Lomond, is here. Sherbet and fruit, sherbet and lemon fruit. So zesty, fresh, outdoors. A green element here, like some kind of green leaf, like nettle or herby, but like you've literally torn something, like green leaf, not cut grass, not silagey, fresh. Tomato vine, you know, the green vine from tomato, that green aroma you get from tomato. It's quiet, but it's here. But altogether, spirity and fresh. Tiny wee bit of sweet sugar. This is altogether a younger, brighter thing than I expected. Ben Nevis has a lot of bass notes to it. It has a lot of kind of low frequency, bassy, deep, heavy notes that brings you really quite down. It makes you kind of brace yourself for quite an impactful experience with Ben Nevis. That's my experience with it anyway, even at a very young age. So I've got a 4-year-old Ralphie Ben Nevis, heavily peated. However, is there peat on this? Nothing. There's probably peat here, but it's so quiet on the back of the Bowmore even. There's not a lot of smoke in the glass. Maybe if I left the empty glass for a wee while and went back to it, take a cover off it, I'd maybe get smoke and things, but smoke is dialed back a wee bit here. Chief Francis saying, went to the distillery just after they got restocked to the Ben Nevis and they were selling the Coralish for 35 and the 10-year-old for 40 if you were on the tour. Fantastic value. I picked up my whiskey when I was at Ben Nevis Distillery, didn't have the 10-year-old in stock. But the value, £36 for the Glencoe 8, cast strength. Incredible value and an incredible visit. They've tidied that distillery up a wee bit. It's looking much smarter than it used to in the past. Peter Lee saying, I wish they used a clear bottle so we can see the colour of the whiskey, even if it's pale. Coloured bottles put me off. What do you think? Peter, I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. This is a smoked bottle. It's kind of an olivey green colour. But I don't know if I put something white behind it. Let's see something clean and white. You're going to be able to see even through that green bottle. There is no question that we're probably looking at quite a pale whiskey. I hope you can see that there. So even the coloured glass. Now the dark label makes the whole thing look a lot darker. Turn it to the side and it all goes very white winey and grapey on the side. But you're right. I don't care too much about it. We can enjoy and appreciate the colour and the glass. It's all about the whiskey experience, right? This is just probably by far the youngest whiskey we're probably going to taste tonight, I think. I would guess this is maybe a 7-year-old of that order. It's not off-putting. It's not harsh. It's just spirit forward. 46% ABV, so not too harsh. Cheers. First sip. Very soft. That I was strapping in for a big heat, chilly, raw, sharp, harsh. The spirit on the nose made me think I was going to be tasting it. It's all about alcohol, but this is cool to the palate. It's cool on arrival, softer than you imagine, clean, light, easy. Spirity, yes, but easy. You would think this is much softer than 46%. This is Ben Nevis is here, okay? So the Ben Nevis character that I talk about, that I recognise, similar to something that you can find in, say, some of the Campbelltown whiskies. You can find it in Benromac, you can find it in Loch Lomond, you can find it in other distilleries out there. It's here and it's present and it's obvious, but it's nice and it's in check. What we have here is a kind of more top-note version of the 10-year-old. This is a lighter, brighter take on that bassy, beefy, meaty, heavy, characterful 10-year-old. Here we've got something lighter. So if you imagine the 10-year-old is taking care of the bass notes, as I talked about, this is kind of mid-range and top notes. So now we're getting some nice, clean fruit and floral. Dare I say salty again. The palate, just having that single sip on the palate has helped the nose a lot. Remarkably soft. This sips like a 43% whiskey. Maybe it's because it's the 5th whiskey I've had tonight. Moorish, slightly sweet on the finish. The sweet is a wee bit saccharine on the finish. I think that's the young spirit. I think it's youthful here, so we're getting a bit of a saccharine finish. That's about the only fault I'm picking up here, if you want to call it a fault. It's not a bad thing. It's not off-putting. Short, not particularly long finish, but nice and pleasant. Wee bit bittersweet. This is an amazing value whiskey. This is £44. I'm suspicious it's young, but it's okay for being young. This is remarkable. £44 is probably the right price. If you can, Shay, you're talking about picking this up for 35, that's much more in line. That makes it a really good bargain. That's an easy recommend at £35. 44, okay. It's probably at the upper end of what it's worth at 44. But this is good, creamy, textured, slightly oily even, briny, lemon, sweet lemon, confectionery. There is a green thing here. There's something green. I'm struggling to find what it is. I'm struggling to articulate it, but it's a green note. Have we got 5 out of 5 tonight? Literally, have I found anything bad? The only thing I've whinged about tonight is one that I didn't even want to talk about tonight, only to show how good whiskey from Fettercairn can be, was why I shared that. Quite awful. Honestly, I don't like that whiskey, that 16-year-old. But the ignored whiskies, I think I'm on a full house. I think I'm happy to own all of these. The Glen Grant 15-year-old, tell us a bit more information. You've got a perfect whiskey, especially a 15-year-old, 50% ABV at less than £60. Well done, Glen Grant. Then we move on to our second whiskey. I think, did we go to the Tullibardine next? Oh no, it was the Fettercairn next. 48.5% ABV, fully natural, ticks all the boxes. In fact, it goes a wee bit further. It actually tells us about cask makeup, and it gives us a wonderfully engaging whiskey for £54. Fettercairn, you deserve hugs for that. That's amazing. Tullibardine, well done. Give us a wee bit more information, put it in a bottle, lead with it. 15-year-old whiskey, 14 or 15-year-old whiskey, £55. Well done, Tullibardine. Really pleased to have that on the cabinet. Bowmore, I need a bit more time with it, but it's very encouraging. I'm excited to spend more time with it. Very encouraging. In fact, while I put the timestamps on the video underneath tonight, if I pour another wee dram to sip along while I do that, it'll be the Bowmore. So that probably tells a tale. And finally, to finish on what I thought was going to be the most heavy, bold, characterful Ben Nevis at the end, that's why I kept it till the end. This is a new thing from Ben Nevis. It's a non-age statement. By the way, the labeling and the branding on Ben Nevis is pretty... It's functional. It's perfunctory, let's say. But it's all the more charming for it. Again, I'm encouraged. I am genuinely encouraged by that. I think we've got a full house tonight. There we go. There we go. We have a full house. What did I not talk about tonight? I've talked a wee bit about the Oswas, but let me let you into a wee secret. What I'm going to do is all the data that we are generating, Ralphie and I are determined that we're going to use that. One of the things that you're feeding back to us, and you're using that area and the vote in the oswa.co.uk, go there and vote for your whiskies. Please vote for something if you're in the Scotch community and you love Scotch whisky, and only vote for things that you feel confident about, that you've discovered quality, availability, affordability, and that you would replace it and you would recommend it to a friend. Then it's worthy of your vote. If not, just skip and feedback to us using people's choice. But at the end, there is a field for you to just give us general feedback. And that is, there's a mine of comments coming back there. Really, really, really lots and lots of feedback. What I'm going to do on Sunday, the 23rd, I think it's Sunday the 23rd of October, is I'm going to do a behind the scenes live stream. It's going to be, I'll share the link with everybody, but it's not going to be in the front page of the Aqvavitae YouTube channel. It's going to be something that you're going to need to get the link for. I will link it probably on social media feeds. I'll link it in Patreon. I'll link it in Aqvavitae Barflies page, and I'll also link it either underneath in the description of this video, or if I do a vPub the Thursday night before I go to Texas a week from tonight, I'll link it there. And it'll be a Sunday live stream where I will literally sit and take those questions, all the horrible comments, all the nice questions, and everything in between, and I'll go through them before we close the voting. So that will be, no, that'll be the 24th, Sunday the 24th, my mistake. And it closes that evening. At close of play on Sunday the 24th, the voting closes. So I'll go through all those comments before the OSWA voting closes so that I can feed back to everybody and answer lots and lots of questions. First of all, Whisky, thank you so much, Phil. You start. He's put in the link to take you straight past all the nominations pages and everything. That link he's given you will take you straight into the vote. So you might want to spend a wee bit of time on the website first to look at the nominations and digest what's been nominated first. But if you choose to use that field, there's a good chance that I'm going to stumble upon your comment in the coming weeks and maybe be able to use it in that kind of semi-public, let's say, vPub, just to address we're going to try and keep it as transparent as we possibly can. All votes cast by Jimmy Legg involve Campbelltown. I apologise for any annoyance this may have caused. Listen, if you want to use that form to display your biases, your bias in whiskey, Jimmy Legg, you're very, very welcome to, my friend. Don't worry. Chris is saying, it seems that some distilleries are putting out core range natural whiskies with the odd expression aimed at mass market, i.e. Loch Lomond. Loch Lomond are moving closer and closer and closer, baby steps, to natural presentation. We are going to see more 46% Loch Lomond. We're going to see paler Loch Lomond. We're going to see nicer Loch Lomond. It's going to get better and better. Loch Lomond are moving away from this bottom shelf contract whiskey white label experience image and bringing good whiskey. And it warms my cockles that it's not just me that's discovering it, but other channels. Market Whiskey Whistle loves these Loch Lomond now. It's nice to see the community, the creator community, talking about Loch Lomond in very positive light. But it's even better to have it coming back from you guys as well. Chris, I hope you're enjoying. I hope that, with very few exceptions, it's moving towards a much more natural presentation in the future. Chris is saying some are mostly mass market, but releasing some natural whiskies, Glenlivet and now Fettercairn, they are dabbling. Glenlivet are doing this interesting thing with the illicit still. 48%, 12-year-old age statement. Let's put it out there. Let's see how we go with this. We need to applaud these whiskies and reward them and say, we like this, give us more of this. Fettercairn. Fettercairn are capable of putting things like this out. I'm in, sign me up. £54, it's a bargain. A genuine modern bargain. Wonderful stuff. Anyway, there is a quiz at the end tonight, guys. I know that a lot of you don't hang around till the quiz at the end. Thank you. I cannot believe I go this long. 2 hours, 16 minutes on a solo thing. I can't even blame, the fact that we've got so much to cover with a guest or anything. It's just me going through my whiskies tonight. Thank you for indulging me so much. And I hope that you're able to pick it up on the replay with the help of the timestamps below. I'll stay up late tonight and I'll put those timestamps in. For those of you that want to stay for the quiz at the end tonight, I think it's a fair quiz. I think there's a couple of tricky ones in there, but it's a fair quiz, so you should be confident at getting a decent score. Lots of pass marks tonight. Please hang around with me till the end to enjoy a wee bit of quiz time. While I grab the comments, what I need to do is do a wee screen share. I need to get the quiz up, and it is here. Link copied. I should have done this well in advance. I usually have it done. There we go. It's on its way. Dribs and Drams is saying, I just got a Loch Lomond 12-year open edition. No idea what to expect. It's one of my favourites ever. Please, for me, look at amped fruit, bright fruit, citrus fruit, nice grapefruit, nice fizz, nice effervescence. So you're looking, especially if you taste it alongside, I believe the closest comparison that comes out of Loch Lomond would be the Inchmurren, the fruity 12-year-old Inchmurren from the straight neck pot stills, so lots of fruitiness coming out. Inchmurren 12 versus that open edition Loch Lomond 12. What you're going to detect is that amplified fruit character and that slightly fizzy, lovely effervescence that the wine yeast seems to add to the mix. I really, really hope you enjoy it. I would love to hear what you think, Dribs and Drams. Probably you've heard me talking at length about that and really, really enjoying it too. I've probably bought 6 bottles of that, but so there's some shame in admitting that I've bought 6 bottles of a limited edition thing, but I also would proudly say that it's also true to say that I have gifted a lot of that whiskey out there to people that I thought would appreciate it. I think it's fantastic stuff. Anyway, let me pull up. Share. Get the quiz up. And I apologise for not having this prepared in advance. I'm slacking, clearly. Let's see if we have it now. We do. Is this going to pop up if I click here? It is. Fantastic. All good. So what I can do is I can get rid of... Is it Speyside hasn't been forgotten about? It's just been kind of parked for a little while. Everybody, good luck. 10 questions. It's all fully optional, of course. It's multiple choice. You only need to share your score if you want to. You know the drill by now. Good luck, everybody, with the quiz. Question 1. It's about Bladnoch in the Lowlands. When Raymond Armstrong bought Bladnoch in 1993, what did he have in mind? What was his original plans when he purchased Bladnoch from the predecessor to Diageo back in 1993? I think it would have been, who would that have been? DCL? UDV, sorry. Hoyt Hempel said, great information tonight. Try some Barrel Armida when you come to the US. Ooh, Barrel Armida, Hoyt. I wonder what that is. Thank you very much for your drama, friend. Cheers to you. Anyway, what did Raymond Armstrong have in plans for Bladnoch in 1993? Was it A, returning it to a farm? Was it B, converting it to holiday homes? Or C, distilling again before 2000? Now, this is a tricky one to open with, but if you know the dynamics that were at play back in 1993 when Raymond Armstrong bought Bladnoch from Diageo, or they weren't known as Diageo back then, but you may know the dynamics that you purchased that distillery under, and then the community movement that followed changed the direction somewhat. That might help you answer this. It's pretty tricky. Maybe we're opening with a banana skin tonight. Jerry Miller is suggesting that there will be some ass hats and banana skins, but he's put a wee 10 icon in there as well. So maybe he's confident. Anthony Lambert is saying a long time ago, I bought a very cheap NAS bottle of Loch Lomond. It had a blue label. It was the worst single malt I ever tasted. Anthony, that was once also my impression of Loch Lomond too. And it's hard to shake that experience, even when they bring good whiskies. It's hard to shake that experience. If there's any DNA that connects you with that bad experience, it seems to be amplified. I'm happy to report that most of my Loch Lomond experiences in the modern era has been really, really positive. Jesse Voicing is here. Good to see you, Jesse. Been watching on the big screen. Superb. Jumped onto the laptop for the quiz. Enjoyed all 3 parts to the Ignored series, Roy. Thank you very much, Jesse. I thought that there was originally going to be a 2-part thing, but I think this has a bit more life than that, because as the months tick on, there's more things to add to that kind of ignored theme. I hope you don't hate me for adding in a Ben Nevis at the end. It doesn't really fit, but I wanted to talk about it. Bar Almeida says Sugar Kitty is finished in pear brandy, Jamaican rum, and Sicilian Amaro casks. Oh wow! Will I be able to find that in Texas then? Quite incredible. Eric Way is saying, I thought it was converted into a Starbucks. Listen, most of you have absolutely nailed this. The original plan was Raymond Armstrong was buying this from Diageo, or the predecessor to Diageo, to convert it into holiday accommodation. But what happened over time is that the community got involved in a movement convincing Raymond, who then got together to convince Diageo to let Raymond Armstrong bring Bladnoch back as a distillery, as a community project. And he did that for quite a long time, up until 2014, until David Pryor got involved and is responsible for the Bladnoch that we know today. And I'm very glad to have Bladnoch still on the map. But that was the original plan. We could have lost Bladnoch if it wasn't for that community movement and the dedication of Raymond Armstrong back in the day. Question 2. You might find that a lot of the questions tonight rely heavily on the new 2022, the only whiskey book, annual whiskey publication that you need, the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. My sidekick. It's like having a friend here. But a lot of the questions, in fact, 8 or 9 out of 10 tonight, will be based on the 2022 yearbook. Which of these distilleries has changed sections? A, Brora, B, Loch Lee, or C, Isle of Arran, Loch Ranza? One of those 3 distilleries was in the 2021 yearbook in one section, and in the 2022 yearbook it is moved into another section. Is it A. Brora, B. Lochlee, either Lochlee, or if you have the pronunciation in your vocabulary of the for Loch, then Lochlee, or Isle of Arran, Lochranza? One Glassman Warner is celebrating 100% score. 1 out of 1. I'll leave now. Greg's Whiskey Guide on 1 out of 1 as well. Superb. Anthony Lambert saying, may have to jump over my own shadow with Loch Lomond then. On your head be it, Roy. Anthony, if you try one, if you can find Anthony, send me a wee email. That's what to do. On my head be it. Send me an email, Anthony, whiskey@aqvavitae.com, and let me send you a generous pour of the open 2020 release, the Chardonnay yeast Loch Lomond, 12 years old. And I'll send that to you, and you can tell me what you think about it, my friend. Then you don't need to risk. You don't need to jump over your own shadow. But I like the turn of phrase. Peter Box is saying, I'm waiting by the mailbox for my 2022 book. Listen, if you're trying to buy it from Amazon or whatever, it's not going to be available to the end of October. If you go to maltwhiskeyyearbook.com, I believe is the address. If you go to the website for this, you can order it online. And if you put a wee private message to Ingvar and say, Ingvar, I'm a barfly, can you sign this for me? He will sign it before he ships it to you. Gentleman that Ingvar Rond is. He was on the vPub a year ago. I'd love to have him back again. I hope you agree with me. He was a great, great guest. I don't have my copy yet, and I ordered it immediately. Jimmy Legg is saying he's waiting patiently for it. Good for you, Jimmy. I'm glad you ordered it. And Anthony Lambert is saying, we will do, Anthony. Then I'll be able to send you on a wee sample of a Loch. I might send you a couple of Loch Lomonds, and you can tell me what you think. Whiskey 101, does your yearbook still say 2021 on the first page? Mine does. And it makes it more collectible, I think. Ooh, look at that. 2022, 2021. I never even spotted that. Nick, superb. A nice wee error. Just goes to show how busy Ingvar is. He needs somebody proofreading it. I noticed that Aqvavitae doesn't get a mention in the websites to watch either. But it's not a website, is it? So it doesn't count. Nice spot. I wonder if mine is going to be collectible now too as well, or will they all have that 2021-year-old mistake? I imagine that they're all printed and sitting on pallets here, there, and everywhere. James Morgan is saying, B, after some deliberation, I will tell you that the one that has changed section, and the lounge has pretty much got this nailed, is Brora, because Brora is now working open new distillery once more. So it moved from closed distillery section to the new distillery section. Lochlee does appear for the first time. Lochlee is an Ayrshire and Lowlands distillery that's just about to release its first product. It's got a loose connection to the automotive industry because it takes its packaging inspiration from tire marks. For some reason, I need to look into why. And what was our other option there? Isle of Arran, Lochranza. That's still in the same place, but it's moved simply because it's, instead of being listed as Arran, it's now differentiated from Lag as Lochranza. The answer was clearly A. Question 3. Bit of a banana skin, perhaps, but maybe not. Another new distillery appears alongside Lochlee in this year's yearbook called Burnobeny. Where is it? This was a new one to me. Burnobeny? Then I did a bit of research and I did a bit of looking back into its history, and I kind of understood a wee bit about it. Burnobeny, where is Burnobeny? Is it in A, the Eastern Highlands, or B, the Southern Highlands, or C, the Northern Highlands? Oh no, I can't. I'll give it away if I pick this up and show you it. But yes, we don't see the outside of the distillery. It looks like quite a big hangar, quite interesting stills there. Brand new, founded last year during lockdown, it would seem. I hadn't heard of this. How can it be that a malt distillery opens in my own country, and I'm an enthusiast and passionate whiskey follower and student, and I miss something? When I worked at Reader's Digest, says Dribs and Drams, I let an error like that go to print. Yipes. I also found similar oops on Lechic 10 label last year. Yeah, it does happen. It absolutely happens. It was opened before, but publishing delay-wise. I see. So where is Burnabenny? Is it in Eastern Highlands, Southern Highlands, or Northern Highlands? Bit of a tricky one. I know that a lot of you will be guessing, so it's a wee bit of a banana skin here. But Burnabenny is in the Eastern Highlands. Specifically, we're talking about what you may have heard of in the past, of kind of short-lived distillery. It was like a project that we heard about for a little while, and then it just kind of disappeared. It was D-Side Distillery. So it's not on the same site or anything, but it's the same people behind it. And it looks like the distiller from Strathearn has moved over to there as well. So it might maybe be something that we hear about in the future. Again, I'm glad to have the Malt Whisky Yearbook, not just because of its encyclopedic content and its data listing and things, but also the great articles in there as well. A big article in this one about chocolate malt that I'm very interested to read. Jimmy Legg is saying a bit of a meno there, Aqvavitae. Oh, he's had a wee slip on that one, and JG has as well. But Graham Fraser is relieved that he managed to get past it. Question 4, Glenturret's E-Type release commemorates the 1961 overnight Coventry to Geneva journey, announcing the arrival of the famous Jaguar. But what's missing from the promotional description? So this is an interesting decanter-style release from Glenturret, and it's commemorating this bizarre, almost jarring collaboration between the automotive industry and Bowmore and Aston Martin, the Loch Lee with the tyre marks, and now Glenturret releasing an E-Type commemorative bottle, commemorating the arrival of the E-Type Jaguar. So it's 60 years anniversary. But I want to know what is missing from the promotional description for this E-Type Glenturret release. Is it that it's missing that it's a £1,500 price tag and they don't tell us? Is it B, that it's non-chill filtered and non-coloured presentation? Or C, is it missing an age statement? What's missing from this big headliner release from Glenturret? Bit of a banana skin. Chris is saying the biggest burner for me is the Weems Malts Bunnahabhain. Ouch. Wonderful contents, though. That's right, when they misspelled Bunnahabhain, probably exactly how you've written it there. Absolutely spot on. I wondered if I should have kept the box for that reason, but it was opened. It's on the go. Here it is here. Untold Riches. Yeah, and it's even spelt wrong on the bottle as well. It's BH in Bunnahabhain, isn't it? Bunnahabhain. So if we go here, if you might be able to just see that spelling mistake that Chris is talking about. I don't know if it's been able to focus on that for you to be able to read it. Not on that teeny wee screen. Let me help that a little bit. There we go. Hopefully that will focus and you'll be able to see the wee spelling mistake on the bottle as well as on the outside box, it was spelled even worse than that. Anyway, what is missing? This is a tricky question. I appreciate this is a genuine banana skin and it's difficult and a bit of guessing. But this is £1,500 and it tells you in the promotional material that it's £1,500. They've got no shame. It does say that it's non-chill filtered and natural colour. Well done, Glenturret. But what it's actually missing is any information on the makeup. It does not have an age statement, despite telling us that it's £1,500. You would have to think that there's some really, really old whiskies in there. If I did a bit of digging, potentially there is some information on the web or some marketing material that tells us a bit more. But really, there's not much more than that. £1,500. I guess I'm not going to have an E-Type bottle of Glenturret on the shelf. Here's a picture, and I think I can thank Graham Fraser for this picture, but we are looking at a distillery. If you are a member of the Barflies community on the Facebook page, this might help you a wee bit, but this is also a bit of an asshat picture question. Maybe this is a bit tricky, this quiz tonight. I'm going to ask you, what are we looking at, or which of these statements is true? A, this distillery doesn't appear in the 2020 Malt Whisky Yearbook. B, this is not Scotland. Or C, this has become Scotland's most southerly malt distillery. Andrew Glenn is talking about it's a minimum 30 years, I think. I'd be surprised if it was a 60-year-old product, right? Because £1,500 these days would be cheap for a 60-year-old whiskey. Absolutely. So thank you, Andrew. It could be that it's minimum 30 years old. This doesn't appear, which of these statements is true? This does not appear in the 2022 Malt Whisky Yearbook, this distillery that we're looking at. This is not Scotland, or this has become Scotland's most southerly malt distillery. So we are looking at a malt distillery here, but potentially I'm saying that it's either not in Scotland, it's Scotland's most southerly, or that it is in Scotland and it just doesn't appear in a 2020 Malt Whisky Yearbook. So that option is A, not Scotland is B, and Scotland's most southerly is C. Looks like a refinery. You may be looking at Bevo Burn on a very small screen. It's actually not nearly that kind of scale. It's actually quite a compact little footprint. I don't know if that helps anyone at all, but most people has absolutely nailed it. What we're looking at here is Gordon MacPhail's new project in Speyside, up in the kind of more western side of Speyside. This is the Cairn distillery, and as of yet, as it does not seem to appear in the 2022 Malt Whisky Yearbook. So it is real. It is a real Scotch malt whisky distillery, as in Speyside, and it's owned by Gordon MacPhail, who also owned Benromac in Forres. Question 6: which of these glens operate two separate spirit safes? One for each pair of stills. Now, this is fairly unique. I don't know of another distillery producing malt whisky that has more than one spirit safe in operation, running a pair of stills at a time. Is it A, Glenallachie, B, Glengoyne, or C, Glengyle? Which of these has two spirit safes? Graham Fraser is saying, sorry for the poor quality pick, but it was taken from a speeding car. I think it added to the trickiness of it, Graham, but thank you very much. Anybody that's a member of the Aqvavitae Facebook group, Aqvavitae Barflies, you'll know Graham Fraser. He's very active in there, and he likes to post a weekly Guess the Distillery picture. Most of you have kicked this out the park, dribs and drabs. Apparently, I know nothing about Scotch. I don't want you to feel like that. That's not the intention. If you're not getting any of these right, I hope that at least it makes you consider that. It makes you learn something at least. Sorry, Sugar Kitty is saying a car driven by a cow. The one Glassman Warner is saying, I've been to B&C, it has to be A. Well done, Warner, with your process of elimination. It is indeed, and this was actually a Facebook posting from Glenallachie themselves this week. It had a picture of Billy Walker, and specifically they talked about their individual spirit safes, one for each pair of stills. Glenallachie has 4 stills. That was the only other way you had to work this out. Glengoyne is pretty unique in that it's not unique, but it's strange and it's different in that it has 3 stills. And Glengyle only has 2. Question 7. Again, one that may be an advantage for you to know or be a member of the Aqvavitae Barflies group in Facebook, but this is super interesting. There was a picture shared by Matt Bishop about Campbelltown distilleries just this week, and I grabbed the picture. I'm going to use it for the quiz tonight because I think it's fascinating, but I want to know, according to this Japanese publisher Maharobi, a map of Campbelltown, how many active known lost and unknown lost distilleries were located in Campbelltown? Once the whiskey capital of the world, of course, but how many distilleries was that? It's a fairly small town. It's not a big town, Campbelltown. Was it A, in one town they had 16 distilleries, B, they had 22, or C, 37? Now, I'm not suggesting that all of these were open at the same time at any point in history, but it's interesting that this map has them all listed, and trying to be as accurate as possible, I believe, trying to work out exactly where they were located. Whiskey Guy, Greg's Whiskey Guide is asking, do you know how many distilleries you have visited so far? I don't keep track, Greg. I wouldn't even like to guess. Not sure. Not enough. How about that? Is that a good enough answer? I think you've answered this very, very well as well. C for posterity. Jimmy Legacy, and how can you count unknown distilleries? Well, there was a record of the distillery existing, Jimmy, but the problem is that he didn't know where. It's been razed to the ground and built upon, or there's just nothing in existence there anymore, and it's been lost in the annals of time. They don't actually know where it is. Dancing Midgie Glen is in Glen. If I glance over my monitor, your picture is hanging proudly on my wall, and I absolutely love it. It's in pride of place. I hope you're doing very well, my friend. It's nice to have you in here. But One Glassman Warner is suggesting 23. It's actually 37. Look at this map. It's fascinating. Now, you can download this if you click onto Matt Bishop's post on Aqvavitae Barflies Facebook group. You can get this wee map, and it lists all the distilleries underneath, the known and unknown. And it's got a wee key legend there as well. Found it quite fascinating. But 37, most of you answered C. You're absolutely right. Probably you know from the stories that it was over 30 distilleries. Quite incredible for such a tiny town. All to do with its location there and its access to the sea, of course. Wow. 7 out of 7. Helen is celebrating her pass mark already, but Steve Atkins is on 7 out of 7. Andrew Butler, 7 out of 7. Fantastic. Andrew Graham Young, 7 out of 7. Warner, 6 out of 7. Ross Fudd, pass mark. I'm done. 5 out of 7. Superb. Any other 7s? Terrific stuff. Question 8. Which of these Ardbeg expressions was released in 2020? Don't you think that time is flying so fast? It's difficult for me to keep track of the years. I think that's an age thing, but I found this a bit of a fright. Which of these was released in 2020? A. Scorch. B. Ardbeg, as in Ardbeg. And C. Black, as in black. A. Scorch. B. Ardbeg. And C. Black. Which of those was a 2020 release? I feel like all of those was 2021. All of these were just released last week. That's what it feels like. Oh dear, I know it's age. And Jimmy Legg is saying it's 2021, Roy. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for keeping me grounded. You're absolutely right. One Glassman is suggesting that they were all released in 2020. I know. Graham Answer saying, is Ardbeggy? And Ardbeggy, I've been talking to him this week, but I don't think he's in tonight. I can tell you that the 2020 release of the 3 was actually the New Zealand Pinot Noir cask Black. Ardbeg was rye cask, released to celebrate Mickey Heads, of course, and Scotch was their 2021 release of the heavily charred cask, which sounds a lot similar to me like their Alligator release from a number of years ago, but I'm sure it's quite different, of course. So the answer I was looking for was C. If you answered C, give yourself a point. Bit of a banana skin there. It's difficult to keep tabs on the years, I think. Capacity question, one for you, another banana skin just for our friend Jimmy Legg. In terms of theoretical maximum capacity, what is the largest Scotch malt distillery included in the inaugural 2021 Online Scotch Whisky Awards? What is the largest distillery that's been put forward, nominated for public vote? Is it A, Glenallachie is the largest in this year's Oswas? Is it B, Laphroaig is the largest in this year's Oswas? Or is it C, Talisker? The reason that I've put a banana skin there, you need to look at that word in the question that says theoretical. I am not suggesting that they are making this. This is all about the Malt Whisky Yearbook 2022, so it's the capacity listed therein. So before you flick to these, Sugar Kitty saying alligator, andouille sausage. I don't know if andouille is delicious. Just thought I'd mention that. Suddenly hungry now, Sugar Kitty. Thank you for that. Jimmy Legg is saying, lol, thanks, Sugar Kitty. I have had alligator. It wasn't particularly memorable. Maybe I need to try it again. You're all absolutely right. Most of you are. Some people seem to think it could be Talisker, but I can tell you that it is indeed A, Glenallachie. And I did write down these capacities here. It was quite interesting. Talisker is a 3.3 million distillery, so not small by any manner of speaking. And I think they're probably working close to capacity. They are up there. The other option was Laphroaig at 3.3 million as well. I think it was Laphroaig. But Glenallachie, while they are not making 4 million litres per year right now because they've slowed everything right down, fermentation is slower, they're experimenting, they're taking their time. But theoretically, they have the ability at Glenallachie to make 4 million litres a year. And Malt Minion is saying the Scotch was matured in the refill. Alligator barrels. Superb, Chuck. Thank you very, very much. Obviously, an invested big fan, perhaps. It is not interesting in any way, says. I think it is interesting. To me, Glenallachie is one of these ex-Pernod Ricard distilleries that was purely there for the existence of producing high quantities of efficient whiskey for blends. And now in the hands of Billy Walker at Glenallachie, they've wound it right down. They've got a 4 million litre distillery in it. They're probably not even making close to 1 million litres. It's not even scratching the surface of what the capacity can make, because they've completely transformed the scope of what they're doing there for a different end game. That in itself is interesting. We are not going to be able to taste that for some time yet. Billy Walker is doing the best he can with the stock that he inherited. We're still a few years away from tasting the liquid that he's created there. I think it is a wee bit interesting. Will we finish on an ass hat? Yes, we will finish. I'm afraid on a wee bit of an ass hat tonight. Tomatin launched its 12-year-old expression the same year as what? Tomatin's 12-year-old core range product. When was it launched? Was it launched at the same time that Glengyle is revived? Was it launched the same year that Brora was closed? Or was it launched the same year that Little Mill was demolished by fire? Demolished is probably the wrong word there, but regardless, destroyed by fire would probably be a better word. But when was the 12-year-old from Tomatin launched? And again, I find this interesting. Don't know if that helps you. When was the 12-year-old from Tomatin launched? Jimmy Legg thinks it's A's, whereas Tony Nelson, Matt 69, Jerry Miller, Chris Witham, Malt Minion, One Glass Man, A, just a guess. So there's a lot of guessing, but a lot of people seem to instinctively be drawn towards A. It is a bit of an ass hat because, of course, you need to have a rough idea when the Tomatin 12-year-old was launched, and also you need to know roughly when Glengyle was revived, when Brora was closed, Little Mill was demolished finally by fire after being mothballed. Little Mill was 1995. Brora was closed in 1983, recently reopened again, and Glengyle was brought back to life in 2004, which just happens to be the same year that Tomatin launched its modern 12-year-old. Now, there were Tomatin single malts that existed before then, but we're talking about the 12-year-old release from Tomatin, the modern one. What's interesting, I think, about that, to me, is the fact that Tomatin was another bulk producer making bulk quantity contract whiskey. And only in the last, as we can see, 16, 17 years for the 12-year-old have they been focusing on single malt for single malt's sake. Relatively new phenomenon. They've got a massive core range now out now that's expanding all the time, and it's all part of this very recent phenomenon that we're all enjoying today. There we go. Let's jump in and see who's been scoring well tonight. Oh, Peter Box, 9 out of 10. I'll take it gladly. Ross Fudd is saying, Bronx cheer for me for a 6 out of 10 pass mark. Tony Nelson, good to see you. Tony, 7 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for Whiskey 101. Nick, JG on an 8. Fantastic. Falsgraf on a 6 out of 10. Wow. This is not my worst ever, but worst for a long time. Sorry, Falsgraf. Still, you've got a pass mark. Take it to the bank. 10 out of 10 for Graham Fraser. Celebrating. Fantastic. Well done, Graham. Very learned you are as well. Graham Young on a 10 out of 10 celebrating. Superb. Chris Witham, you should be celebrating your 11 out of 11 tonight. Andrew Butler scoring a 10 out of 10. Superb. I hope you've got over the teeth grinding, Andrew. Martin Breeda on a 9 out of 10. Andrew Pearce on 8 out of 10. Snapper XV on 9. Chuck Maltminion on 9. Wow, high scores. Well done. Superb. Some guesses, but super happy with a 9 out of 10, says Whiskey 101. Fantastic. 9 out of 10 for Jesse Voice. And great quiz. Picture question. Nailed me. You slipped up. There was a bit of an ass hat. It's not normally an ass hat mid-range. It's not normally an ass hat question in the middle. I just put one in tonight. The pinch hitter. Looks like a new name. I think that's a trick question. Both A and C are correct. Which one? You're talking about Little Mill. I think Little Mill was destroyed by fire in 1995. Would it be in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook? Let's see. I think if I've made a mistake, it would be important to catch it now rather than after the closed distilleries. Little Mill. Oh, yeah, beauty. The pinch hitter. You star. Okay, let me read this little section from the Malt Whisky Yearbook. Oh my goodness, I love being taught by the community. Little Mill, Scotland's oldest working distillery until production stopped in 1992. Triple distillation was practiced until 1930. In 1996, the distillery was dismantled and part of the buildings demolished. And in 2004, much of the remaining buildings were destroyed in a fire. Fantastic. Pinch hitter. If anybody answered C for the last one, or A, it's not a trick question, it's a mistake by me, you get another point. So I hope that's helped a lot of people score a wee bit more. Fantastic. Whisky Radar saying, still puzzled by the Ardbeg question. Whisky Base says 2020 for the Ardbeg release, and Black was 2019. Ooh, let's see. My goodness. Have I been lazy about my quiz questions tonight? I was in a hurry. I've been decorating and painting all week. It's been a nightmare. Let's see. Okay, according to the Malt Whisky Yearbook, 2020 Black, Wee Beastie and Trevan Batch 2 are released. In 2021, an 8-year-old, and that was the for discussion type thing that they came out with, right? A 25-year-old, Ardbeg, the Mickey Heads release, Scorch, and Trevan Batch 3 are all released. So, if anybody wants to take a wee bonus question on the Ardbeg thing as well, based on Whisky Bates, as Roland is mentioning, Whisky Radar, go ahead, take your points, and I hope that gives everybody a wee boost. And Dancing Midge saying 2004 for Little Mill. Absolutely. There's been some, thank you very much, Pinch Hitter, for the correction. It's exactly what I talk about. We're often stunned at just how much knowledge is out in the community. And I think it's a good thing. And I hope I always have the humility to step up and say, oh, I made a mistake, please take the points, or whatever it is. I regularly make mistakes. Graham Fraser is saying, by 2004, only half the Little Distillery existed. No equipment to distill, though. And I visited in 2000. You've been visiting distilleries for a long, long time, Graham. Wow. Thanks again for a grand vPub, says Helen. Ardbeg Black released 3rd of March 2020, I believe. And the pinch hitter is... he's saying thank you. So it looks like some people have been giving them a wee applause and a pat in the back as well. Thoroughly deserved. Fantastic. Wonderful stuff. Listen, I hope you've discovered some things tonight. I have to be honest, I have discovered some things tonight. Thanks to Jason Bradford. I had already discovered the Fettercairn. It was easy for me to step up and pay for the £54 on something I knew was going to be good. The Tullibardine was a bit of a risk. I think it paid off. The Glen Grant 15 was a wee bit of a risk. I think it paid off. The Bowmore, I think, will pay off. I'm encouraged by the Bowmore. That's what's in this glass right now. And it's very enjoyable. The Ben Nevis, great take on Ben Nevis. A slightly different take, a brighter, lighter take on Ben Nevis. I am willing to declare that tonight's exploration of ignored whiskies has been a resounding success. I'm happy to have them all. The one I gambled on didn't really feature as part of the lineup tonight, but ended up being the subject of a huge rant, was the Fettercairn 16. I have made my point about that. I'll put it to rest there. Thank you all very, very much. I do hope that on the eve of leaving very, very early in the morning of Friday next week to go to Texas, I am able to bring a vPub. Please keep your eye on the channel. You'll see it pop up, and you'll see, if you click that bell icon notification, you'll see a notification for the vPub pop up if I'm able to do it. But it will be a small, shorter, more compact, laid-back vPub, because I need to get an early bed and get up very, very early in the morning for a first transatlantic flight in 2 years. I'm desperate for it to be a success. I'm desperate to make it. I hope it happens. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for helping me explore some amazing whiskies. I hope you've had a wee bit of fun, and I hope it's inspired you to try a couple of things that you maybe walk past. Graham Fraser saying a very enlightening stream tonight. Thanks as always, Roy. Graham, if I can enlighten Graham Fraser, I'm doing okay. Thank you very much, Hillswood. Helen, that just jumped. I think I caught your comment. Good night, all, she's saying. Fantastic, Helen. Good night to you too. I hope you're feeling better soon. Rossford is saying, fantastic, Roy. Fun having you all to ourselves. Thank you so much, Tom. Maybe I'll see you in Texas. Can that happen? Evan Callis is saying, midday in New Zealand. Time for a dram. Superb, Evan. Good for you. Thank you for joining us in your morning. Dancing Midges bought me a dram to say, cheers, Roy. Cheers right back at you, Glenn. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for the dram. Peter Lay saying, sometimes I really enjoy the solo vPub. Easier for me to catch up on. Thank you, Peter. And Anthony Lambert is saying, cracking vPub tonight. Always nice to make it live. And to the end, cheers, Roy. I'll drop you that email in the morning. Please do, Anthony. Thank you so much for the kind words. I was just in Austin last week. Have fun, says JG. Jay, it looks like I won't make you there this time. Maybe at some other time in the future, my friend. Thank you. Chris is saying, could you not budge the vPub to a Friday night on location? So what I would like to try and do, what I normally do from Texas, Chris, is we normally get a slot so that we're not, all the YouTube channels aren't competing with each other. There's kind of a stacked live stream slot. And if I'm issued a slot, I hope that I'm able to carry enough equipment to be able to put together a rudimentary live stream. So it might be able to do that very thing. I think that would be fun, Chris. On the Friday night, no, the Friday night is a kind of arrive, settle in and relax kind of thing. There's nothing planned, I believe, for the Friday night. Everything kicks off on the Saturday. And then the Bastards Ball itself is on the Sunday. And then I fly home on the Monday. I'm literally arriving Friday and leaving on Monday. It's just the way it has to work. But Chris, good idea. There might be a live stream from Texas. In the meantime, I'm going to sit with the last few whiskies I have left. As I said, the one I'm most likely to pour another glass of is likely to be the Bowmore. Fantastic stuff. I'm pleased with all the whiskies I discovered tonight. Sorry for the mistakes in the quiz. I hope you'll forgive me. And I look very much forward to enjoy Balcones, Roy. Andrew Miller, A Miller's Life. I have to tell you that I already enjoy Balcones. I've got 3 or 4 Balcones on the shelf. I already love it. I'm interested to see what new things they've brought. That's something that I can maybe smuggle home. Ben Demon Hunter is in Texas and he is celebrating Texas. Ben, I wonder if I'm able to catch you there. I'll raise this delicious wee glass in the Jason Whiskey Wise branded glass. And I'll thank you all for joining me on another wonderful wee whiskey session tonight. I've enjoyed it very much. I've certainly enjoyed these whiskies. I've enjoyed hanging out with you. You're all very dearly loved. And I very much look forward to hanging out with you. Hopefully, fingers crossed, a week from tonight. And if not, I'll see you shortly after that for a live stream direct from Texas. Until then, folks, thank you and Slanchava. Excellent. Excellent.